Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's the start of a long day. Long day. Let me go check YouTube. Good morning, folks. There's a whole bunch of you in my tweet or my chat again. Thank you. There we go. Yep, we're good. We're live. It's another chilly one, but we just started early. Oh, glasses. Wardrobe malfunction. Wardrobe malfunction. I didn't even recognize that guy. Who's that guy? These are my beat 'em up glasses. And then I try and keep these ones in good shape. Hey, recognize me? Good morning, everybody. Another chilly one, but we have balmy weather coming up. So it should be just in the minus teens now after today for a little bit. We might even break zero in the day. Balmy. Good morning, Prairie. First, you're getting up early. You take care of any animals or anything? Do you got some chores in the morning? We're balancing and doing all of that. And yeah, generators running just to be safe this morning until the sun gets up. Good morning, Prairie. Good morning, Azario. Thanks again for that chat. I listened to it again yesterday. You're a smart dude. Thanks. And anytime, Azario. Come on. Word on the street, YouTube street. Okay. The lawyer had his fourth last week. That's a shame. Causation, it's, weak link. Because there's also other factors, right? Stress. Lots of hard work. Maybe he was up late several days in a row. He's on the podium now. Lots of other factors, but let's not dismiss everything. But yeah, causation, cause and effect, maybe. Sucks that is even something we're talking about, looking into, from this to the Queen to Betty White to everybody, Coolio to everybody. Now natural doesn't seem to be natural until we've asked this question, and even then we don't get an answer. So that is the current way this works, unfortunately, Prairie. But let's keep asking that question. Let's keep going into that. Let's keep pushing health officials. Let's keep opening doors. Let's keep finding, seeking, telling truth. And there will be a transition. We will come out of that. That's naturally going to happen with the more that we learn. So, Prairie, thank you again for bringing that up. And of course, we all were wondering. And fourth, that means Die Hard. And just so you know, I think fifth is the one where most people will cut it off. I called that way before, like last year. First two, people will do. The first booster, you'll understand it. The fourth one is where you'll be reluctant because, wait a minute, I thought it was two. And then the fifth one, that will be it. Because at that point, you won't believe it. It's actually doing what you're being told. Humans have behaviors, and they're quite predictable sometimes. I think fifth is where the biggest line will be drawn. Lots took the fourth. Not as many as the third. Not as many as two. The number of people doing it is shrinking. But I think five is where common sense and reality will really kick in hard for what we would call critical mass, a good chunk, so that you have momentum to keep going. I think fifth is the one that's going to do it. Yikes. Hope the guy's okay, but we all thought the same, right, Azario? First thought through my head was, oh my. Second one was, hope that's okay. And the third one was, oh, did he and is it? And then the one after that was, I didn't like that sound, because the sound he made when he passed out. It's a scary sound if you've heard it before. Check out my website, all that cool stuff. That'll be the only time I plug that. I've pinned it. But if you got another source for something else, maybe, hey, let's go see if that document's available. It is. Oh, look at that. Call with Premier Ford is now available on the database. So here's the link. Just popped up. I checked it yesterday. It wasn't there, railroaded. So there you go. Official. That's the Prime Minister with Ford conversation. That's an interesting conversation. I kind of want to hear the audio of that one. because that conversation doesn't really fit either one of them well. Like, that's not who they are, kind of thing. Or at least it doesn't seem like it. But there you go. It's actually in the database now. So great stuff. And then good morning, all. Very nice to see you. Morning, Prairie. Farmer sausage. Let me know when you've had it and how you made it the next time you have it. I'm jealous. We have a knockoff kind here, but it's not the same. Hey, off to work we go. Good morning, Railroaded. Nice to see you. And yeah, it's going to be a long day. We were warned. We're probably going to finish up the witness yesterday that got interrupted, along with the RCMP officer from Alberta. Name is Marlin Degrand. Yeah, Marlin Degrand. Both of them we're going to see today. So Mario and Marlin, probably going to get all finished up because we finished Jim, we finished Ian. And then those are the other two this week. So Mario and Marlin. Hopefully we'll see the lawyer back. That would be a great thing because we can see him back, and I'm sure there'll be a bit of a pause and everybody will be happy with that. But don't be surprised if they did have to replace him and someone else is taking over this morning. You know, we don't know. So I'm hoping we see him with a smile, bunch of water, and he finishes. That would be great. Morning, Rosario. 22 here. Yep. Yep. What do we got here on here? I'm just going to check my executive. Yeah, we've got 22 as well. Kindred spirits there, Railroaded. We are popsicles. It's all good. It's all good. It's warming up. It's probably warming up for you too, Railroaded. If you look at the forecast for the weekend, it's actually looking pretty nice. Share the love, Osario, Railroaded. Good morning, everybody. Today's secret phrase is boots on the ground, have a drink of water. This is like Sesame Street, where we're going to pick a letter at the beginning and a number. And if it comes up, have a drink of water. What I want to hear, Rosario, is the bag of guns. Okay, so this is the first witness that would have been directly involved with the discovery and execution and finding and, you know, investigating and all that stuff about those guns. Now, if they are suspect, we're not going to hear that here. Witness is not going to say, oh, I thought I saw officer blah, 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 collect a bunch of stuff from the back room and run out the front door with it. Like, we're not going to hear that. That's not going to be anything near what happened or what we're going to hear. But I'm curious with the cross for this one, because, you know, we want some more details. They're going to be slim because there is a criminal matter moving ahead. But we should be able to hear, like, why did you think that? How did you hear about that? Were you tipped off? Maybe not who, but what got you engaged? I always want to hear more details, like anything and everything that can come out of this officer or commander or assistant commander. Can't quite figure out their title, but I think it's assistant commander. What they know and what they can share with us. So make them comfortable, make them feel at ease, even prop up their ego a bit so they spill the beans. But that's where I'll be spending a lot of attention, is waiting for and looking for anything around the magic bag o' guns. And as Mayor called them, the fake guns. So I'd be curious if that's a shared perception or what. Probably not with the RCMP. Good morning, folks. Hey, Clay, Bud, how you doing? Hey, Denise. Good morning. Good morning. All of you, amazing. Great. Can you ship that to us? Actually, Denise, I think we are sending you the cold front. So we experience it, and then about a week later, you're going to be seeing it. So you got your toque? Actually, I should do a Jason toque, right? Because it's going to be cold. Yeah, enjoy that cold front. It wakes you up for winter. If you're still alive after 3. What's that mean? I don't know what that means. If you're still alive after 3, it's going to be 18, and then that. Shared that link. Great. Okay. I'm going to turn this off. Oh, let me go check my chat stream. There we go. Live chat. Keep forgetting that. There we go. Prairie. Lots of comments in there from people saying it's nobody's business if he got the jab. Crazy, eh? Just a few months ago, counter personnel and waitresses were asking everyone. Yeah, that's a good take on that, Prairie. Now all of a sudden it's nobody's business. Don't worry, Prairie. This is the stages that we would expect. Okay. This would be the stages. Denial would be, this is the stages we'd be expecting. And I'm glad that we're kind of seeing this pop up now, because that's kind of confirmation that we're getting through stages. They're going to have to go through denial and anger, remorse, and a few other stages in order to get this done. But it's a good sign. You know, at least they're moving on to something else. It was everybody should get it no matter what. Now it's none of your business if I have it. And soon it will be, what have I done? Okay. And then after that, it's got to be, well, we're going to have to help them, because we can't have a whole large portion of this population go into depression, which would be the natural next step of that. So, you know, we're going to do what we can to be strong, be ready, and recognize these signs, Prairie. This, I think, is a good step when you start seeing this narrative changing to this none of your business attitude instead of everybody should have it attitude. Okay, so a good step in the right direction, maybe. Hey, Denise, I saw the mayor of Coots say the guns were fake. Yeah, we watched it live. And then we caught it, and we said, hey, what did he just say there? And then the commission counsel on re-examination asked him again to clarify what he meant, because when he used that, he was talking about somebody else as well. Like, it wasn't clear who the subject of his sentence was. He wasn't very, very good at articulating a clear picture. Because at the end of that little paragraph, he said, and the guns were fake, or something along the lines of, and the guns were fake. So we were questioning at the time, Denise, whether or not he had that opinion that the guns were fake, or he was relaying an opinion from others that he thought the guns were fake. But at that time, we thought he was talking about physically the guns themselves were maybe not real, fabricated, fake. And then the counsel question asked him, commission counsel, there we go, I got it up. Commission counsel asked him the question again to kind of clarify, like, what did you mean? And it turns out what he meant was not necessarily the guns themselves are fake, okay, that the whole situation around the guns felt fake. In other words, to him and the people around him and his magic source of Facebook and YouTube, he absolutely believed that, in his opinion at that time, the narrative around the guns was they're fake. They're planted. They're not what it looks like. Okay, so that's what he slipped out. Then he got asked again about it to clarify it. We were very curious, because as soon as we heard it, we wanted to know what he meant. And that's what he replied with. I think we're all on the same page there. It's just a funky situation. Something doesn't seem right. Doesn't sound right, smell right. Even the mayor doesn't feel that. So I don't think it's wrong to question it. That's what the courts are for, and that's what critics are for. Even the mayor does. And even the mayor was a little bit totalitarian, where he wanted to be, you know, direct people, and he was labeling them as domestic terrorists in order to move the ball further up the chain. So he's not a completely, you know, freedom-loving, charter-loving, peace-loving guy. So for him to even be questioning the narrative, it kind of helps put the spotlight on it. But it doesn't mean much more than he felt that way and said that under testimony. So we'll be careful with labeling them a certain way. Maybe we could call them the so-called guns. You know, so-called was a prefix before anything you want to diminish. So maybe those are the so-called guns. We can use that. If you're still alive, have to. Got you, Denise. Ooh, oh, yeah. Look, that's so tough, because if we find out in the future that this was a huge mistake, you and I, Denise, and the rest of us here are in that transition period where we'll look back in history and say, well, thank goodness at least some of them didn't, and some of them was aware, and some of them was trying to alert. Like, when we look back in history, we're going to be going, at least that group was able to then grow, because that actually led, you know, a good group of people out of that darkness. But oh geez, like it's tough that these are even, I don't want to say jokes. It's not a joke. It's a shot at, oh, that's the wrong word too, a shot at the system, because this is something that we can point to and snicker at and understand what it means on a deep, deep level. Morning, What truth twisters are on today? We have the RCMP Alberta, Dave. So we definitely expect some squirming here. We're not sure. This is our first RCMP officer, so we're not sure if they're like the OPP or OPS. We're not sure. We do know that they had the bad data, bad intelligence. CSIS didn't have the right stuff. OPP did. We might find out that RCMP is a recipient of the Hedden reports. We might find that out. But what we're really curious about, Dave, is the guns, the blockades that the RCMP themselves did, and reports of actual criminal stuff. And maybe we'll be diving into those 3 excavators a little bit more. How do you accidentally do any of that? You know, there's some good questions around Coots and the policing. And this is the only officer I see, that I see. Like, we get other RCMP later, but that's probably a lot more around Ottawa and National than it will be Coots, although they'll touch on it. But this might be the only Coots officer that we're going to hear from. So probably some twisting there. And hopefully Brendan gets up there, not totally related to his clients, but maybe he can get them to say things around the EA as well. Then not need that they didn't need it. Sorry, I just got distracted looking at the results for the election in the U.S. there. As I think we all expected, it's going to take a long time. You're dragging a lot of feet and things are taking a while. But it looks a little red. And for Alberta, we're looking for red. The more red that the U.S. goes, the more oil they want, more pipelines open up and flow and stuff. And that's great for Alberta. It's still happening here, even just at the beginning of the month. My caretaker here put papers on my door to fill out for the jab. My caretaker. Who's your caretaker? I don't even know who your caretaker, like your apartment or building, home. Who? Why? I don't think there's any right. If that's housing, I certainly don't think there's any right there. That's interesting, Prairie. Some people are not getting the message. So I think you may have heard their story of some Japanese soldiers after World War II didn't receive the orders or didn't believe the orders. So they or just a few of them held their ground. They held their cave and waited for, I think, decades, wasn't it? That's how important getting the right information can be out. To get out is because these people waited for a long time. Let me just look this up. Anybody has it, go ahead and let me have the link. Japanese soldier. No, war was over. There it is. Google knows what I'm looking for here. Yeah, so let's just quickly, I briefly remember this story, and this is what happens when you don't get truth, because he didn't believe it or something, and then for a long, long time. Here we go. You heard about this guy? I got the camera on my face, so I got to move over here to read it. There we go. January was an Imperial Japanese Army intelligence officer who fought World War II and was a Japanese holdout who did not surrender at the war's end in August 1945. After the war ended, he spent 29 years hiding in the Philippines until his former commander traveled from Japan to formally relieve him of his duty by order of Emperor in 1974. Oh, he needed Twitter. He needed Twitter. This is why truth is important. Okay. This kind of thing. Okay. This is not common. Okay. But the whole point here is some people get the message late, Perry. This person is knocking on your door, putting notes on your door. They're getting a message late. This guy got it 29 years late. What we got to do is get the message out. So let's work hard on that one. And sorry if it's bothering you or causing you any stress. If it's housing related, Manitoba, I don't know all the rules in Manitoba. I know Ontario is very strict on making sure that people keep housing. So they're on the side of keeping housing. And highly sus that the diagonal badges were on the tactical vest. Yes, sure. Yep, sure. Or not sus at all. Maybe, look, in the very root of this issue, it can simply be a few guys who were frustrated and packed up their legal weapons, because they're legal weapons, Don't know if they had PAL transportation going on or anything like that, but let's just assume that their ownership and their transportation and their storage of the weapons were legal. Let's just presume that, because I'm sure that the RCMP didn't bring the guns in as they found them in their cases and stuff. They opened them all up and put them on a table and displayed it all. It wasn't like found like a cache like that. I'm sure they were being transported and stored in accordance with proper gun ownership. If they own the guns proper, they have PALs, they know what the license says. So I'm sure that that's probably the situation. Let's just suggest that maybe it was a few guys a little frustrated, packed up their guns, legal, transport, maybe thinking they would use it as defense, not offense. Let's give them that little bit of credit, that they were thinking these are just in case things go squirrely the wrong way, and we don't want to be found in a situation where we don't have a way to protect ourselves. Let's give them that benefit of the doubt, because I would have a hard time making the stretch from it's more than that. They were going on the offense in some way. That's what the court is trying to prove. That's what the allegations are, that they were going to target officers. I'm not going to go there because that's the presumption of innocence, and I have nothing that says that that was the case. All we do know is physically, some gentlemen with guns were raided with them. And that's another thing, right? Now we're finding out it was in a house. It wasn't in an RV. If you look up the original stories, they talked about finding them in a trailer or RV. Maybe that's the media screwing it up, and it was a trailer home. There's a lot of those in Alberta. They're mobile trailer homes. It could have been that. But in either case, we now know that they set up a mobile hospital for the raid, and it was on a house. Now, let's go back to where I'm trying to get at here. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they were just using, preparing, collecting for defense, not offense. And yeah, one of the guys was a big dude who's, as we heard from the testimony, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, biggest cuddly bear you'll ever meet. And there's a lot of people like that. Just basically a good Canadian would be that way. But he just happens to be a large guy. And he's the one that had the Diagolon affiliation. Jeremy knows him. I think he said something along the lines like somebody was knocking off badges and we don't mind because we're not, you know, official trademarked or anything like that. So we don't mind that people are knocking off badges. And I think that big dude used to kind of just stand around and look like maybe security, and he had the badges. Again, they're not crawling around in the mud playing militia in the bush because everything was pristine and nothing was dirty. But what's wrong with him showing a couple memes, even standing beside the founder and acting like a big security guy? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing illegal with that at all. In fact, if Jeremy paid him, it's a security. What's wrong with that? Nothing, in my opinion. So that could be the case. It could just some dudes. They were frustrated. They thought maybe the police might be doing silly things, and they were just thinking, how do we protect us and our family and our community if it ever comes to that? And I don't have a problem with that. Okay. Stand on guard for thee. That's what our anthem says. Stand on guard for thee. So that would have been nothing more than that. That's what I'm presuming and giving them the benefit of the doubt for, because the next step is, well, I need to have some more proof. That would be presuming they're guilty. Sus? Well, here, Arzario, maybe you're thinking planted. Maybe you're thinking constructed, fabricated, the whole scene. Maybe, and maybe. We don't have any evidence of that. And does it matter? Like, does it really change anything? I don't think it really changes anything if they threw a couple meme, except for maybe, Arzario, you got me thinking here, except for if they were sowing the seeds of national threat. Farfada there, Diagolon there. Maybe. I don't have evidence of that. What we do know is there's a table full of weapons. Some people are charged, and courts can be going forward on that. And hopefully this witness today might give us a nugget or two more of information that we didn't have. That surgical hospital, that mobile hospital was a good one for me, because that tells me how high they raised that threat level to in order to respond to it. Okay, so the stream isn't up yet, and it usually is by now. Let me check again. Oh, we got it. Okay, let me bring it up, because we're just 5 minutes away. Good morning, stream. You gonna be stable for us today? I hope so. There you are. All right, folks. Queued up. Good morning, all. Yes, this is historical. Yes, it is Weechi. There is an inquiry coming up about the damage and sudden death. Well, there's also that citizen inquiry. I did apply. Now I've had like 3 or 4 people poke on my LinkedIn that are sus when it comes to if I'm being checked for making my way through those stages of being a participant in that inquiry. So we're certainly going to keep an eye on that one, whether we're involved or not. We're going to be keeping an eye on that one because that's a citizen one, and this is one I think we should be doing a lot more of. What we're watching today is cool. Okay, big data dump. We're getting lots of information, but I really would love to see a citizen-based one, very similar to the one we're about to see with the COVID questions. Okay, I think citizen-based is by far the most effective. You may not have a lot of power, but maybe that's something we can do in the next parliament, is create a statute. It does give citizens some powers like subpoena, swearing in, putting people under oath, under threat of perjury, just some of the basic foundational parts of the justice system. Maybe we can bestow that onto citizens that go ahead and follow a certain framework to create an inquiry that's meant to be fair and impartial on an issue. Maybe there should be a framework there for citizen inquiries to allow things like subpoena power. Well, you got to hide government. Why don't you give us kind of that little government gift and give us a bit of a statute that allows us to go ahead and look deeper, more than just ask questions. We can actually subpoena you. This is why I want to be an MP, so we can go ahead and use the powers that they keep to themselves in order to do things like that. Go ahead and call inquiries and look into things with MP power. Maybe that's a statute we should be pushing for. Civil Citizen Inquiry Act, something along those lines. CIA, Citizen Inquiry Act, CIA. But we're looking into you, right? It's for our intelligence. CCIA, Canadian Citizens Inquiry Act. I would support something like that. I think maybe many of you would too. My stepdad started. Yeah. Look, we are all, and I think this is one of the stages, Denise, is first we're going to hear about people maybe affected, and then we're going to it's going to come closer. It's going to be like a Canadian that you heard about, now a local Canadian, and then it's going to be somebody you know's friends or uncle and stuff, and eventually it's going to come all the way down to you, because that's how many people were affected by this and touched by this. So eventually it's going to be immediate family. That circle of touch is going to come all the way into you. At that stage, that's going to be around the 5th vax. I think a lot of people are going to switch because now they know somebody who got injured. It's not just catching it after because you weren't supposed to. You got injured. The injured phase is going to be the long drawn out one. We don't know what we're supposed to do. We're just finding out now. We're in the trial phase. So this is going to happen, Denise, and I'm so sorry. And to every single person who's touched, slightly touched, I got friends who are hurt. I'm so sorry. I wish Canada did something. I wish the world did something sooner. My sister had both. Okay. Really? Were they related, or just some women have to do that? That stuff moves quick though. Wow. Okay. I'm not going to really comment on that, Denise, because that's anecdotal and that's direct. You know these people. So I can't really comment on that. However, that would be fast if that happened. Okay. I got video. Don't have audio, but I got video. Okay, Denise, I'm so sorry. Even the fact that that's happening too, related or not, I'm so sorry. Yeah, exactly, Prairie. Oh my gosh. Building caretaker. Okay, so like an apartment or something like that. Yeah, that's housing. What are the rules in Manitoba for housing? I know in Ontario, I was a landlord. In Ontario, it's tough. It's tough if you're the owner. There's more rights for residents, which I support. I do support. It got in the way from being a landlord, but because people know how to take advantage of the system. But for the few bad apples, overall, I get it. I get it. You need to have a place to live. There you go. You love those numbers, Railroad. Yikes, Denise. My sister. Sorry about that, Dave. I'm very sorry about that, especially if it's related. So sorry, Dave. Very sorry. Yeah, 100% railroaded. I'm glad we can all share. I'm glad that we're that type of group that we can share these things together. So thank you for that. I'm tough beans and I knew this would happen. So sorry, Denise. My one sister. Yeah, Denise, I lost my only sister too. She was very young, 30s, not related to this. This all happened before that. We might get into that one day. And then I lost my brother in his teens, tragic accident. Horrible, horrible, horrible. But he's here. I now have audio. You all take care.
The Public Order Emergency Commission is now in session. La commission sur l'état d'urgence est maintenant ouverte.
We'll talk soon.
Good morning. Bonjour.
Hey there. Oh, look at the wings. Look at the wings. Maybe if I ignored them, you wouldn't even notice them either, but a little OCD about that. All right. Well, okay. This witness is kind of right where we thought maybe. Yes, blame, expose some truth. Couldn't say the EA was needed. We knew that kind of thing's coming. I didn't hear anything about the guns or the raid. Did I miss that? I had to move some propane tanks around, so Paul Chump would have been very disappointed with me because I had to move about 6 propane tanks and I had them in an area together. Highly dangerous and explosive there, Paul. But just so you know, I had to do that. All right. So did I miss anything about the guns? I didn't hear anything about the guns. Let me look at my live chat quickly here. But did I miss anything about the guns? I didn't hear anything. Hey, Wayne. Welcome, bud. Nice to see you. Hope you're all good. Hey, Prairie. Hit me in the chat if I missed anything there. I heard a lot about the Canadian Armed Forces. We'll get to that. All right. So it looks like we're going to be getting through him pretty quick too. It looks like that was the examination. We're going to get to the cross and re-exam probably after the break and right before lunch. So we'll probably be done with him before lunch. I would love to see the price attached to requesting records be made available for free as the records already exist. Why charge so much? Talking about Freedom of Information Act requests. They do charge quite a bit if that's what you're talking about. Kind of agree with you. Maybe the option should be electronic version for free. So you'll get a PDF or multiple PDFs or a link to download once they're ready. So they're not really photocopying. Maybe they're just digitizing. But Prairie, no, the access to the information should be free. If you're a legitimate request, you're a legitimate Canadian citizen, taxpayer, or person, heartbeat, all that kind of stuff, you should be able to gain access to information, and cost should not be a barrier. Now, with that said, Prairie, I do know that you can ask or apply for the cost to be waived. You may be asked a couple questions, but ultimately, if you pushed hard enough, it can be free, but they make you push for it. But I would agree with you, Prairie. It should be open, free. It might take some time. Might have to go back and forth a bit to clarify what you're looking for, but freedom of information can be improved upon. So I would agree with that, Prairie. The Alberta Health. Okay, so Weechie, if this is truly happening, okay, if this is truly happening, there's no such thing as deleting, just so you know. Which means that if they deleted it today, there's records that it existed. We'll be able to find out that it was deleted. When it comes to IT and data and all that kind of stuff, the tracks are super, super hard to cover because backups, redundant backups, progressive backups, iterative backups, there's all these types of things that they would have to go into and archives go into to fully remove. That would make it difficult, but not impossible. What I'm getting at there, Weechie, is if this is happening, it's going to be hard for them to completely cover that up. And then if they completely cover it up, that'll be impossible for us to ever prove otherwise. So maybe Smith, maybe you're going to get in there, audit. I've been asking for it. Maybe just focus on the 3,362 deaths of 2021. Just those, just start there. Audit. Let's do this, Danielle. We need to do that. Please and thank you. Indisposed episode, geez. Sorry, Denise, I can't quite remember what that was for, but I think it was at the beginning of the testimony. Right, 100%. He came out very early and said no EA was needed, right? So let's add him to the list. JT said Coots, blockage, EA, had to use it, etc., etc. Turns out Coots, blockage, no EA, not necessary. Done before your announcement. And this witness did say, you know, they were very clear very early. They're leaving. Even on the 20th or on the 14th, very early, they were leaving. It was clear to them. Even WAC left before that, a whole bunch left before that. They were taking down tents before that. They were absolutely in the process of surrender, because that one is when the guns came in. They just shut down at that point. And that was voluntary on their part. They didn't require anything to do that, other than they realized the situation, whether fabricated or not, got elevated to a new level that they were not there for. So they packed up, walked away, because that was the smartest thing to do, is the right thing to do at that point. We'll live to fight another day, right, guys? We'll keep this fight going. Honk. Hey, David. Nice to meet you. I don't know if I've met you before or put you on the screen, but here you are. Welcome, David. Nice to meet you. Hey, Prairie. Yeah, please go ahead and smash that like. We've got some good numbers today, some good viewers today. So thank you all very much for finding the stream and sticking around. This is kind of what we do. We watch the inquiry uninterrupted, and then we talk about it. We chat about it a lot during, and then we talk about it. So if that's what you're here for, you found a good spot for it. Thank you for coming. Hit that like button so more people can find us as well. And thank you, Prairie, for reminding me as well. Have yourself a good one. Unifying command. This is the inquiry of unifying command. We keep hearing that word. He came out with it quick. Tools in our toolbox. You know that lingo. You know that lingo. We've heard that all before too. So he's also well briefed, because there's some common threads between certain witnesses. Here are some of the common threads. Looking for unifying command. Very proponent of it. Very happy with it. Want more of it. And looking at things as tools in their toolbox. So look for those terms. Let's see if he says herding cats as well. That was another common one. So herding cats. Hey, Tammy. Good morning, everybody. Tammy, I think you're another new one. So I want to say hi. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Eleanor. We love Eleanor. Morning all. This is the guy that made the RCMP oversight function done by the RCMP. Has made the RCMP a function done by the RCMP. Yeah, they check themselves. Who is the oversight for the RCMP if we have a problem with them? Good question. We need more citizen-based oversight. Ontario has one for the police. Probably something to take a look at and re-examine and see if we can use that same model as well. It's also why we want Alberta provincial police, and I think all provinces should do that. And by the way, we heard him talk about that. We heard him talk about the RCMP's responsibility initially is to be in an area where there's not much going on when it comes to policing. And then when a region or a town or something grows to, like, I think it said 5,000 was kind of the limit or the number. Once you get to that point, you should start looking at local policing. Excuse me. And then they would separate or back away. Hold on a second. That's exactly the role of the RCMP. They came around early. They were here early. They were there to give mounted police for Canada, but they're supposed to be slowly replaced as populations grew and matured. This is why I think coast to coast, all provinces are ready for provincial police. They all should do it. It should be a good model to copy the OPP, tweak it for your own needs, your own rights, oversights, and then add civilian oversight to it. I think that would be a great system. It would be a great system. So all of this info he was getting was third hand and hearsay. He was never actually there, and probably not even in any of the control centers. He just sat at home. Why aren't we getting more senior people? The last couple of days, we're getting assistants to juniors almost. Like, we're not getting the most senior that we could be getting. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy around that. I'm just saying I would like to see more senior. That allows us to get more direct answers to the decision making and how they made that decision making. Some of his is going to be a lot of speculation. Like, I know where we're getting information from, but he's not the direct decision maker in all the cases. So I'm kind of weary on why we're getting like the number 3s, 4s, and 5s when we should be trying to get the 1s, 2s. But in any case, I'm glad that he's spilling some beans too, because he did. He spilled some beans. Hey, Omnia. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Sorry to hear. Yeah. There's some. Our chat is very open, very honest. We share good and bad, and we get our way through good and bad. You're gonna like it here. Thank you for coming. Hey, Dave. Yeah, we heard that even yesterday. RCMP were blocking stuff themselves. Actually, all 3 major events, Ottawa, Windsor, and now Coutts. We've heard testimony from officials themselves that, yes, they were doing blockades. They were blocking things. Ottawa, they were blocking and getting the trucks from not able to leave. They weren't able to come in. There was a lot of blocking and trapping going on there. In Windsor, they did a lot of blocking. An entire road blocked it all off from local traffic. They were the ones putting down the concrete barriers. We heard how expensive that was for the city, and they were upset or annoyed with that. And then, of course, here in Coutts, they're the ones doing the blocking. Go figure, right? Thanks, Clay, for picking that up. Or was that Clay or Dave? Sorry if I got your name wrong there. Cops are blocking. No, wait, that's right, railroaded. Not the protesters. We heard yesterday, again, you're right, that it was alike to the Ritchie's Brothers auction, according to the Coutts mayor. Yeah, they totally confessed yesterday, the mayor. And yeah, totally. And there's various reasons why they might do that. They might be blocking so that trucks can't come in or farm equipment can't come in. They might be blocking for various reasons. But you certainly can't point to blockades as being the reason to do the EA if they are self-imposed by officials and non-existent on the day that you're trying to use it. So in either case, this is not supporting the EA at all. It's hurting the foundation's totally gone. In my opinion, there wasn't even a foundation to crumble. It's their job to build the foundation, and they haven't been successful at that at all. The addition of the EA added nothing. I love these quotes. At some point, we're going to go through and grab all the witnesses, just a clip of when they were asked, was it necessary? And they say not necessary and helpful and that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of witnesses. In fact, when you clip it all together, it's going to be a long video, but it's going to be a long video of all the witnesses saying the EA was not necessary. So thank you for that, the commission, the inquiry, you're giving us that, and more. So here's just one more. I quoted it here more as a reminder when we're going through the editing stage to remember, this guy said it too. They all do. You're so right, for sure. Very supportive chat here, so welcome. Hey, Clay. No, they did not on RCM asking. Yeah. They were asking for armed forces, as we'll see in a bit here, but no, because there's even provincial EAs and other things that can be enacted, especially if someone's like, pushing the line forward or the police have to resist in some way. Like when things get elevated, you can certainly do more things. I wonder what the actual stats are for this hearing. Oh yeah, railroad. I think you went and found out. So asked and answered. You were wondering? And I like Denise, so probably just us. Yeah, it's a small group. Like we're a very, very small group. I'm sure there's a whole whack more people tuning in on CBC TV shows, right? I'm sure there's some more than us, but not many. People are switched off. They won't see what's coming down the road until it's too late. Yeah. And it's going to be a progressive curve line there, Dave. Have you ever seen that bell curve? Where most people are at the top and then there's a few on the ends and extremes or whatever. It's going to be very similar to that. There's going to be a rush around the 5th dose, though. I think there'll be a rush of people around there and a rush as injuries take up. More people are injured. Paid to the Emergency Act Commission about 1 in 5 people. Okay, so you want to pull up stats. That's cool. It says about 50% a little, while 34% not following at all. And then you guys question whether or not these stats are any good because the husband's married to someone in the PMO's circle. Stats are stats, and it would change all the time. But yeah, I think if it was 16%, that would be a high. To be honest with you, I think that would be high. But if it is that high, great. If it's more, even better. But we can't count on live viewers tuning in now. We're going to have to continue to inform people about what happened with this inquiry and the information that came out. So it'll be an ongoing process. This guy's not very well informed, it looks like, but I think he knew exactly what was going on. Yeah, he was definitely in a position of he should know a lot of what's going on. But what does exactly what's going on mean? Did he only know about the Alberta side of things? Is he tuned into the federal side of things? Was CSIS? Where was he getting his reports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What does exactly what going on mean? Dave, it's such an open question. It could mean so many things at this stage. We have our inkling it was a manufactured issue, but we don't have full evidence of that. Yep. Hey, Linda, welcome from Facebook. I wanted to make sure you popped up here because thank you. Facebook is growing. And on that, Linda, we've got the audio. Here, let's go. Maybe the commissioner's not quite ready yet. Yeah, there he is. All right, enjoy the next half here. Have yourself a good one. Nice to meet you, Linda. Luck, yes, we get an hour and 3 minutes today. We get a long lunch. Hey, Chris.
How you doing,
bud? I'm good.
Doing well.
You sound good. Yeah, you sound good. Good audio.
Got to work on the video, though.
Yeah, video's all right. So, I asked my chat if they care about the wings on me. I care far more than they do. They say, let it fly, let it fly. I care far more than they do. Hey, Chris, how you doing, bud?
Good. Sorry I haven't been able to attend, and it's been just a hectic week. Yeah, I've been catching bits and pieces of what's been happening. Haven't seen any outside of the fella passing out. I can speak to that a little too as well. I've been in scenarios like that, and it may not have anything to do with what people are insinuating out there.
Sure.
But yeah, just still nothing. You know, I didn't pay too much attention to Coots when it started. I mean, I did, but as far as are we keeping lanes open and what was going on there, so it's nice to get a lot more insight to what was going on the ground. I caught a bit of Blair. I think was that today that Bill Blair's texts were released between McIver as well.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think we saw them yesterday.
So I'm coming in kind of not fully informed. Can't speak. You know, if you have questions, I might be able to speak to it or not. But I've just been kind of amazed at the circus. At the hearings, as well as the circus that's starting again out in the, if you want to call it the real world. But yeah, just at this time of year, the first year, I'm like, okay, they're not going to do this, are they? No. Okay, they are. Next year, it's like, okay, you're a little bit more wise to it. And so focus on mental health. I've just been listening to music and just like, you're not going to break my stride. Got to keep moving. People need people to keep moving. And so positives and negatives, but still, man, what a gong show.
Well, yeah, gong at times where we're hearing people kind of continue with this ridiculous narrative now. It's getting so thin, this narrative. There's so many holes in it. It's all over the place. Like it's time to put those tights to rest. There's so many runs and holes in them. It's horrible. And we're getting a lot more of that even today with the Coots information out of the RCMP. This is the first time we were hearing from the RCMP. We got a whole bunch of them coming up next week, but this is the first one. And we were expecting three things out of him today. Talk about the barricading by the RCMP, talk about the gun situation, guns, bag of guns, fake guns, whatever you want to call them. We had some funny testimony yesterday about that.
I'd like your thoughts on that. Yeah, continue.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, and then the excavator's accidental damage, because that's what they called it yesterday. Accidental damage on 3 excavators parked in private property, far, far away. Somehow accidentally cable cutters and wrenches and spray foam for the fuel lines made their way there. But what we did like about that is they talked about it and called it accidental. So that's kind of an admission that they're involved.
Exactly. Acknowledge that it occurred. Same thing with the gas canisters and other things. It's just getting them on the record, that discovery process that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and that was great. And we did hear audio at the time because it was somebody recorded the conversation with the RCMP around these excavators, and they admitted at the time that they disabled them. The really loose word of disable is more like damaged or destroyed. But yeah, that came out yesterday.
Vandalized.
But we were waiting for that one. So we were waiting for really 3 things today, which was police made the blockades, the gun story, what's more details around that, and the excavators. We got 2 out of 3. So this is a meatloaf type of thing. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Need the sauce next week, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So they didn't talk about the excavators at all, but we did get some more information about the guns. So I'm not sure what we should do here, Chris, because we're kind of just chit-chatting. You're kind of going to be around more regular.
Yep.
People are getting more used to you being here. So I'm wondering if maybe we can go through the stars, the chats that we have, and both of us, we can maybe comment on them.
Yeah. More inclusive, the better. Absolutely.
Yeah. And love to get your opinion on it too. So yeah, for the regulars, we're going to go through the chats now and see where we go with this. All right, Denise, the RCMP pledges allegiance to the crown, not the people. Yeah, okay, so Denise, and also that's why they had to do that special swearing-in ceremonies in Ottawa, and they had all that kerfuffle about it takes a while, because they're not under the Police Services Act. Okay, so they need to be brought under the Police Services Act when they're going to be doing additional jurisdictional things. As you remember, Denise, that's one of the EA things they said. We needed the Emergency Act because it helped us swear in RCMP faster. Boo on that one. Chris, what do you think?
Totally correct. Like it is that's one of those things that most people don't know, right? And you know, some would argue, okay, well, it's to the crown, then the Constitution. It's still one of those things that in the heat of the moment, at the end of the day, they do fall under the direction. You see pushback, right? And that's the problem that I think we have with the RCMP, sorry, with the Prime Minister. Technically, the Queen appoints the RCMP commissioner, but we're fooling ourselves to think that they're not handpicked by the current Prime Minister. And so you have that gray area there where there's room to look at the objectivity. If it is lost, which side is it going to fall on? And that's where that comment is. It's going to fall back to the state authority. Unfortunately, that's why I think we need more provincial police forces within the country, and you know, just to be able not to exclude. I've had mixed interactions with the RCMP over the years, and I still take them at it's the officer that you are dealing with in the moment that makes the difference as far as how they view the public. And most of my experiences were good, but there were definitely some where, you know, why did you even show up? Why did you bring this officer? They're just making things worse. And so, but provincial police, again, as we've seen, I think we've seen that there was more than enough capability for them to take care of the blockades regardless. But with the RCMP, it's a different beast, different communication tracks, you know, to assume they are all working together. Absolutely not. There's egos in the room and as well, and personality types and stuff. So I think that you don't have that sober second thought when it comes to our police forces. You don't. I mean, at least the military said no. But when you have that, to me, you know, that should be like everywhere as far as no, we're not going to do that to our own people. But we don't have that necessarily. And the RCMP are in a very different, you know, I can imagine the difficulty that each officer was having as far as whether to challenge leadership through the process or just follow orders. And it's a different chain of command. It goes higher and higher. You know, as far as accountability, you very rarely see RCMP held accountable for their actions. So that's why. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what we heard here was basically, well, first of all, I just wanted to mention RCMP led the procession for the Queen. There's a very strong tie to the crown there. There was a reason why our horses and our mounties were there. Very strong connection. Yeah. The original purpose of the RCMP was to police Canada. But also their mandate was to police areas that don't have police yet. And as we heard today, as Canada was growing, as villages and towns were growing, basically the mandate was anything under 5,000 people, they're there to help. But once they get to that point, they should start looking at local police and start building their own. So it was more of a stopgap, the RCMP, from the very early days to now, where there wasn't enough people, there wasn't enough resources, there wasn't enough police local. You had this federal one, you know, Canadian one. Over time, as populations grow, the purpose and the point is you're supposed to replace them. They're not meant to be the permanent police for everybody. So Quebec, New Brunswick, Ontario had their police forces created. RCMP pull back, as they would, because that's really what the original mandate was. Now, I think what we're seeing here, especially in Alberta, now's the time to say thank you, shake some Mountie hands, parade them out, replace them, because their job was to be a Band-Aid until the local police forces were able to take over. I think we've actually been taking advantage of the RCMP a little too long, not doing our own. And if this isn't the catalyst to do it, for two reasons. One, we should have been able to provincially handle the police. Okay. And two, what we saw happen with the OPP, it's another sober second thought. Like you said, there's another layer of policing going on there. And in the Ontario case, the OPP was very, very pivotal about slowing down and stopping the OPS from doing illegal activity. We heard this in the first couple of weeks where the OPS wanted to do snatch and grabs, and he asked the OPP for help, and the OPP said, like, no, we have this thing called charter, and did the Crown say that was okay? Can we at least start there? And then that's when the OPP became, I guess, what the OPS called less cooperative, because the OPS said they weren't as cooperative as we wanted. Translation, they wouldn't do the illegal activities that we wanted. But that second sober thought was great to have in Ontario. Hey, Alberta, even for that reason alone, it's worth the cost.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, too. When we're looking at a situation where it seems to be a lot of our institutions have been politicized. And so, like, looking at it right up the middle, I don't want to see, you know, just because they're on the left or on the right, that people are treated any different in our country. You know, having that second sober thought is required to have objectivity to make sure that you are not, at the same time, you're not brutalizing the population, but it comes back to trusting in those institutions. And the further the trust erodes, you know, that's why I think that you look at the positives, right? And if Alberta Police Force comes out of this, fantastic. Power to the people with that regard, right? It's not a slight on the RCMP. A lot of times it's like, oh, you have these. No, it's like, and if it's explained well, like what you've just said, if Danielle Smith came out and said, this is what the intent was of the RCMP, this is where we're at today, these are the causations as why we're moving today, because things, you know, are clearly needing to have some level of separations of power. It's an easy argument to make, and I think something that the Alberta people would go for completely. Why wouldn't they? You need to do that before you can really talk about having a sovereignty discussion. You need to be able to have that self-sustaining system machine, for lack of a better term. But again, the only way to check the RCMP or the people that may be manipulating them, because I don't like to use a broad statement. I just see the people behind the scenes. If they've got political means to an end, they'll use whatever tools they can, and they'll say whatever they have to say to get those tools on the table. We're seeing that real time. So I like it. I think it's great. You know, if you guys do move that way, like I'm like 6 hours away. I'm like being pulled to Alberta every day. Yeah. Right. I got the state's border like 30 minutes away. I got an airport 30 minutes away, but Alberta, yeah, my sister's in Saskatchewan now, and she says she doesn't mind it at all. It's freezing, but it's a different kind of cold than what we get here on the coast, right? Not right to the bone. But I'm liking what I'm seeing coming out of Alberta. I think Alberta's probably so far been the biggest beneficiary of these testimonies. So far to date, if you were to look at who has the valid arguments of, you know, outside of the natural resource problems and all the other interference that you see with the ability for, I sometimes view Alberta as like a First Nation that's just trying to get that sovereignty aspect. You know, we've got all the tools, we got the people, we got the will. Government, get out of our way.
And what we're seeing a lot of in this testimony the last couple of days is Saskatchewan. So Mr. Mike Morris from Saskatchewan has been really exposing and putting some feet to the fire here, because
I didn't catch any of that. Okay.
So I'll tell you about the two. So yesterday it was a Ministry of Transportation who was on the line, and he was, you know, telling his narrative, and the Saskatchewan comes on and says, hey, remember those meetings that we have on a provincial level where we work together? You're like, yes, I'm aware of those. And you're there, right? Yes, we're there. And we also have these plans on how to deal with protesters on highways, right? Yes, we do. So existing laws, cooperation between provinces, they cooperate on traffic and transportation, and they also cooperate on planning and emergency planning on them. Oops. Of course they do. So existing plans and laws and facilities and tools to deal with protesters on the road. Well, that's great, because that gives us checks and balances when provinces are autonomous, and autonomy allows them to have their own systems in place where they coordinate and cooperate between provinces.
Like the states do.
Exactly. And that's exactly why this is cool, because it gives us another check and balance. So Ontario's doing their thing, running around doing their thing, but maybe they're not doing things proper, and only another province can call them out on that.
Absolutely.
So imagine if we had like federal transportation, just a single guy doing things there. Who's going to call them out? This is why we got to keep it under Section 92. All of these services have to be provincial. We have to fight for our autonomy and maintain it, because this is yet another example of why that's so cool. And then he did it again today. Basically the same thing, but to the Alberta RCMP. And he said, hey, look, I'm policing RCMP. We have all of these things in place, don't we? He's like, yeah, we do. And we have these plans as well. Like, he did the same thing. We have these plans as well. And he's like, yeah, sure we do. So Alberta RCMP can't get away with it because there's another province that knows the deals. And these are all committees that they're all part of. And he did the same thing. He said, Saskatchewan was at the table for that meeting. He said, yeah, that you were there. He's like, okay, well, it was my understanding this is what came out of that meeting, right? It's like, yeah, that's true. This is another reason why autonomy is very important, I think, for provinces. Just a check and balance like this helps.
And we never had anything like this where it was needed. Like, that's the weird part about all of this is that envy, I don't like using the term envy, but looking at Texas and looking at Florida, it's like, at least people have an option.
Yeah.
Here, everything, there's no way for it to escape. And then I come back to the mental health components of that, what that does to people. And so, I mean, it's so insidious across the board that I think that you have the opportunity now that you probably won't have again, as far as having everything line up to say, we need to do it our own. At least assert yourself is the same way that Quebec does, right? As far as complete separation, again, having all of those powers that be not happy with you is also not a good thing if you want to try and get stuff to market. And so trying to find that balance where you can say to the federal officials, mind yourself, watch your step. There's like perpetual line steppers. They're going to keep doing it until you check them.
I think we can do the reverse of that, though. I don't think we have to say to them, mind your step. We just have to say to them, oh, here's what we're doing. And then if they decide to go ahead and make some steps towards or challenge us in federal court or sue us for things, then by all means, go ahead.
Let's go ahead
and set the precedence. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think Alberta or Saskatchewan or Ontario, because they're all talking about it now, need to threaten. I don't think they need to say anything like, hey.
I don't think checking someone that's line stepping isn't really a threat. It's when you push them back over, it's just like, hey,
sure, but
like you said today, reminding that sovereignty outside of it.
Sure, but I see us more turning our back to them and saying, hey, we're going to take care of our stuff now.
Oh, and leave us alone.
Right. And then if you come tread on us, we'll stand on guard for thee. If you come and tread on us, then, well, we'll see what it is you're bringing. Okay, what is it you're bringing? Are you bringing diplomats so we can talk? Are you bringing lawsuits so we can challenge it in court?
Who sets the tone?
Or are you bringing guys with boots?
Yeah.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
We'll just kind of say, hey, kind of like leaving your home from parents. Okay, kind of the same mentality. It's time to leave the nest. That doesn't mean we're not showing up for Christmas. It doesn't mean we're changing our last name. It doesn't mean we're leaving the family. It just means we're leaving the security and comfort of parents. And if you think of Montreal and Toronto like the parents, or Ottawa, or whatever, it's time for us to leave the nest. And it's nothing more than that. No, parents can get all huffy and puffy and say, I still want to control your stuff and give you allowance and do all that. But a true independent child will grow wings and leave. That's kind of how I see it. All provinces, it's time to grow up. At the beginning,
I think a lot of people, sorry, because a lot of people, I would imagine a lot of people, and this is from an outside view from someone in BC that went woke a long time ago, and I just woke up to it, that it's almost like leaving an abusive relationship. And there's different dynamics to that. You're going to have different emotions, different feelings, different strike points as far as what was that final, thing and how best to proceed, especially if you have a child. right? So you have to maintain that relationship in the best interest of the country, would be the child in this situation. But at the same time, you were breaking free and want independence, but there's still that, you know, because I can't see anything that what the federal government has done has been, you could not be described as abusive, as far as limiting potential for growth and just the onslaught of rights. You know, Alberta's kind of the Texas of Canada, as far as the, you know, constitutional belief and that libertarian mindset as far as towards social issues and things like that. So I can understand, though, that if you view it that way, as far as an abusive relationship, that creates tensions moving forward, right? So there has to be one of those, if you really want to say it, you're right. Everyone needs to grow up. Everyone needs to become an adult, take responsibility for their own actions. And Alberta wants to take responsibility for their direction moving forward without that interference. But you're going to have a lot of people pushing against it. It's a lot different when those resources are sought by foreign markets, as opposed to what we're seeing now with green technology and stuff. And it's almost like, okay, you're no longer useful to us. So not only are we not going to leave you alone, we're going to crush you as well. It's a tough spot to be in, but I'd rather have that as opposed to no opposition from BC and other provinces that you see zero opposition. I mean, the BC Liberals here are trying to say some things, but it just gets lost. It's an echo chamber here, man. Big time. It's like Vancouver, Toronto are the two most woke places in our country.
No, you're not wrong about that at all. And I thought maybe BC was going to be the third, but Ontario,
who knows?
Ford already stood up and said, like, look, we're going to follow Mo and Smith.
It wouldn't surprise me, though, with BC because of the resource industry here.
Exactly.
Like, it is a very difficult one. And if you want to have relationships, like, there's, I think, 250 plus First Nations, maybe, no, 202, I think, First Nations. If I'm wrong, I totally apologize, but it's around 200 First Nations in BC, many of which the only way forward is resources. So whether you're looking at timber or whether you're looking at fracking and other things that, you know, it's a much more tenuous situation here, especially with sovereignty. So having, with the Nisga'a decision and the Chilcotin decision and other things that are really saying that, you know, First Nations are going to have their way of more self-determination moving forward, it's a hard one for them. What are they going to do? All these negotiations, all these things they've been working on, all of a sudden this green agenda is being pushed on people. The fights, like we talked about before, you need to have some level of economic growth, or if the plan's everyone's on UBI, right? Screw it. So I would be hopeful. Like, if BC does decide to stay, then I would probably stay, because it would show at least, you know, I can. I've been in. I just didn't realize they were so as woke as they were, but they're not all crazy people in BC. Again, I think it's a lot of it's highlighted. They give the microphones to the people that are the most divisive, and the rest of the people are standing there going, I just want to live my life. I don't wish harm on my neighbor, you know.
Yeah,
leave us alone.
I can say from a Canadian perspective, BC has about the same volume, but you guys certainly have a little bit more radical things, a little bit more surprising to us. Are like, really, you want to do that? And then universal basic income, UBI, it's really universal bankruptcy initiative. That's what that is. It's trying to bankrupt every country. Okay, so we kind of got sidetracked on autonomy of provinces, which is cool, and it kind of helped do some check and balances today in the inquiry. But now we'll jump back to what James has to say here. Oh, so James is just checking in. This was kind of, we had a break and we had some other stuff. We were looking into who's watching, how many people are watching. And Slayer asked, is the Commission Council neutral? I'm going to say there's only been one Commission Council, and she was on just the other day. I'll have to look up exactly who she was. She was the only one I would say was pushing a narrative. All the other ones, as far as I'm concerned, were very neutral. But we did have one committee council push a narrative, and she was even trying to put words in the witness' mouth. Excuse me as I try and remember who it was, but I would say overall, and even the Commissioner Slayer has been very neutral. But just like all humans, we are seeing little biases. And there is, the Commission Council has a bias for authoritative figures. He does agree and think that authority is a very important thing. And people having to listen to authority is a very important thing. Not really surprised given his career, that he has that mindset. But we have seen that come out. And we've also seen come out of him as well a desire to get both sides. So he's actually called the Freedom Convoy up a couple times to give them more time, and even assisted at one point to get the correct question out of the witness. So I have seen, things that make me go, and then things make me go, oh, cool. So I think when you see both of that in a person, that's as neutral as you can get. I don't know if you can get much more neutral. So Slayer, so far, all of them gold stars, except for one who was putting words into the witness's mouth that were part of the narrative. Other than that, Slayer, I've been pretty cool with them. Chris, what about from you've seen Commission Council been up there? There's about 4 or 5 different ones. One of them passed out yesterday. Maybe this is a segue into what you mentioned, that you can actually talk to that a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I'll start off by agreeing with you with regards to you can pick up on slight bias, but it's not as dominant as could be. I think they're doing the best they can in this situation. I'm not really a fan of the commissioner, but this mainly because he's wearing the mask and stuff, and just right. So there's my bias, right? So, but I still think, as far as what we could have seen, I'm okay with what we're seeing so far. And regards to the guy passing out, I have been 3 times, maybe 4, but 3 times I've been working with people who are, you can see he went to grab his water.
Yep.
And so he noticed something was happening, and
he clenched his jaw. You saw that.
Exactly. And so I don't know, right? But I've been with politicians that are new, or people wanting to be politicians are new, not used to being on the stage, not used to being on the pressure. It could simply have been somebody turned the heat up 1 degree too much, and he didn't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
I've had to catch one person, 2 people fell, and one I had to catch. I was like, okay, that where are you doing? I don't know what happened and what came over me. Just they become flush and they go down. I see a lot of stuff out there, and I won't jump on the how many has he had, that kind of thing, as far as the medical trials go. But just to keep an open mind that it does happen. People pass out, and there's a lot of reasons that it could happen. I'll be interested to see. They would, if it is related to the other thing, I don't think they would mention it.
Well,
but I still
they
think
gave some information this morning.
And what was that?
He's away for a few days. Now, to me, that's an indicator that's more than a faint.
Unless he hit his head when he fell.
Unless he hurt himself on the way down. That's right.
Yeah.
And also, if you replay it right after the clinch, you get to hear his primal moan. And if you've been around seizures, you know that sound. It's the body doing the primal breathing.
When I was doing security, I was head of first aid as well too. I didn't catch that. Yeah,
that sound is what really put the hairs on the back of my neck. That and him falling, like the fall itself can be hard. Like you can hit the ground, hit your head, hit a corner, a whole whack of things. And that's just straight up fainting. I've been around lots of people who fainted. I was a sea cadet, and after we do a bunch of stuff and we stand for a while, it's like flies. Once in a while, somebody would faint.
You don't even get a warning. It's like 2 or 3. Oh, it's like Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory. Oh dear, you're out cold.
But what I didn't hear with fainting in sea cadets is the primal moan.
Is that I didn't catch that.
You just breathe normal. You just breathe normal when you faint. But when it's a seizure or a lockup of the brain, that's when it goes into primal. That's
seizure,
right.
stroke.
So, all of those. That gets it locks your brain into. You have different parts of your brain, but your stem is where your primal is, and that's the only thing working at that point. And that's
it's just the body letting out. It's a defense.
I hate that.
I'll have to go back and listen to it. Yeah,
you hear it. If you know it around seizures and stuff. If you know it, that sound. It was right there. And that's the first thing I picked up because that bugged me because I know about that. It doesn't always mean it. Okay, he could have just fallen on his side. He could have been falling on a table. He could have been compressed chest. There's a whole bunch of ways why he could have moaned like that. But barring all of those, it's a pretty typical sound around people who are suffering a seizure.
That's you're trained in first aid.
That's right. Yeah.
If you hear that kicks it up, you've got a serious problem. For sure.
You're getting in their tongue, you're getting airway, you're going in there making sure that they can breathe because even swallowing tongues happens during that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what bothered me. Yeah, he went to the water, and he knew he was feeling weird.
Something was happening. Yeah,
and then he clinched, so that means that the brain just shut down at that point. And then he went straight down, and then made the sound.
I didn't catch it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's there. But he is okay. He got up, like we heard within, I think, an hour or so after that he was up and about. Paramedics saw him and he needs a few days to recover. All of those could be just simply pressure and he passed out. Like you said, not enough food, stayed up late. All of that could be completely true.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what went through everybody's mind at the time could also be true.
Yeah.
But
welcome to parallel universes where we'll never know, right?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about yesterday during the break, was we now live in a world where that thought will fly through your head. 2 years ago, if we saw a presenter, newscaster, somebody just drop, it would have been like, oh, they just fainted. Because that's all we understood. But now there's a potential that it could be fainted or something else. And unfortunately, I think every single person, no matter what side of the ideological spectrum you are, all thought the same thing. Was it? And unfortunately, that's the world we're in now, Chris, right?
I can't share it or make those kind of assumptions just because we don't know. But again, it's food for thought. And it's not like I try and reach to think of other, it can't be that. We see enough of it. Some of the videos, though, I do see where you have montages of people passing out, and some of them are old videos. Like from before the pandemic, right? So you got to be real careful about what you're sharing and what you're trying. We're all trying to sort through this maze of ridiculous fog. So it's, but all we can do is our best, right? Yeah, and then the mask thing. So the commissioner with the mask got you, right? I had a friend reach out to me about that one because I posted about that one, and he wanted. First, he was annoyed with me. He's like, listen, he has a personal choice to be healthy and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. My only issue with it wasn't so much that he was wearing a mask. I'm going to put that aside because being an independent, put whatever you want on your face. I don't do what you want. Yeah. But what I didn't like was his reaction to it, his realization he was still wearing it. He obfuscated. He quickly left, tore it off. His response to it was not embarrassment, but it was more of a shock, like, oh, no. They saw it. Had he just sat down, took it off, and it was normal. It was like proud. He's like, look, it's my choice. He didn't even address it. He just sits down. I would have had no issue with it. It was his, oh, no face, grabs it, jumps, leaves it, says, I'll be back in 2 minutes, leaves and goes and takes off. That whole drew attention to it. Well, the mindset for that. Yeah. He hit the, oh, crap part of his brain. And then he hit the, I got to fix this part of his brain. And why? Why are either one of those being activated is my question around that. Like, I don't have a problem with you having a mask on, but I have a problem with you thinking I have a problem with you having a mask on. Right. Because now you're thinking too much. And now you're trying to hide that from me too. All of that is what I didn't like. I would have just liked him to say, take off his mask, put his boots up, sit back, all confident, and let's roll. I would have been fine with that. But he ran and like he was so scared, like, oh no, I screwed up. He made a mistake of some kind. Yeah. And that reactionary, the fight or flight mode. He went right into it. It's like, oh, okay, let's correct it. It's not to say that I think he brings a bias into it, because we even see some of the lawyers that are, it's hard for me to say, oh, it's virtue signaling, all these other things that you could ascribe it to. But at the same time, I also recognize what the media and everybody has done to people, where they think it may be helpful or they're doing it for their own personal reasons. They may be immunocompromised, so it's hard for me. I get caught in it, just like you're an idiot. I used to be a lead hand for infection control at a hospital. To me, okay, I'm not wearing one anymore. Like I never wanted to, but I was always fearful of going into a store and having some idiot come up to me and get in my face, right? I take my mom out shopping. I don't want a scene, so it puts a real problem on people when it's mandated. But as far as you wanting to do it and putting it on there, we can talk about bacteria build up and stuff, but I'm not even going to get into that with you. We're 3 years into this. Well, we can even just do your own thing. So when I worked for the SDG, the United Counties government, and I was there when COVID came in, and we went through training on how to put the masks on properly and how to take them off properly. There's single use. You're supposed to wear gloves when you touch them the whole time. If you ever touch it with your bare hands, it's dead. It's done. You have to throw it away. The oils, exactly. It's a problem. Whole whack of things. Yeah, they took us through a whole process of teaching us the proper way to do it. And then, of course, after that class, nobody did it. Everybody just did it their own way, pulled it out of their pocket, used it again, put it back in the pocket, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. So what I'm getting at here is
the government themselves have produced documents and videos and procedures to say how to use them properly. If we can't all agree how to use it properly and then we do it, it's absolutely a signal, not a function, because we're not using it properly. You can't recycle them. It's
no. And 95s as well too. You need fit testing. You know, there's so many certain things, and that's what the worst part to me is that you can't, you know, as somebody who's making that individual choice, same thing with others. I don't, you know, what you do with your body is your choice, because I don't want to tell you. As soon as I tell you, you have apparently the right to tell me. So I'm just going to do my own thing and put as much information out there and to be informed for people.
Well, did you hear the mayor yesterday about that?
The mayor? No.
Yeah, the mayor of Coots. My body, my choice. He called that a conspiracy thing. Because he was talking about vax people using that line. And he's like, that's a conspiracy thing.
I just don't, man. It just doesn't make any sense to me how you even got. That's like the biggest mind, for lack of a better, mind F that I've seen. It's like we're medical trials that are mandated, and we are the ones that are looked at with a funny eye. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I applaud you if you think you did the right thing, and you know, whatever. But it doesn't. And now as more time goes on, we're in a position where people don't like the fact that those that did stand up for their rights were right. And so we're in that weird gray area of cognitive dissonance of for well, not necessarily for me anymore, because it's pretty clear, you know, rinse, repeat, the cycles, it's just going to keep repeating. But for others that are having to go through that, I think that they're sorely mistaken that the vast majority of people are on board with continuing to forfeit their rights for the greater good, I think is where we're at. Because in the beginning, everyone's on the same page. You had that harmony. You had the people bought pots and pans and, oh, we're all in this together. And then it's like, wait a second. And then you had that asking for amnesties and acknowledge there was wrongdoing. I don't care what anybody says. Whether we accept it or you do or not, it's up to you. But we still haven't got over that hump where we have major players acknowledging there was wrongdoing and there was harms and where that harm stemmed from. And until we get to that point, that's where I come back to our opposition. Starting to swing a little bit more, not enough. Because if the restrictions come back in, again, if I was leader of the Conservative Party, I would be all over this. What are you doing? At least on the very level of show us your science. None of this trust us anymore.
Is he ready for that, though? Because he has still too many people. Yeah,
he's not.
Too many people he needs to still keep in the camp.
Well, and that's the thing about it is the choice. We see a lot of stuff coming out recently. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to this, but a lot of stuff coming out about China interfering with the elections and with the police stations and putting
the police stations. They're doing the elections here or U.S.?
Here. Yeah, Michael Chong, check out the Conservative Party member Michael Chong, and then check the quote tweets on his as well. Like, there's a lot of information there that it wasn't just conservatives that were messed with. They were installing people into offices, I don't know if they were constituency assistants, but they were influencing policy. And so if you take a step back to 30,000 feet, makes a lot of sense as far as an explanation as to why we went so authoritarian here, as far as the craziness and the collective hegemony of our media telling us we're bad people. So the fact that's coming out is really surprising. What will come of it, I don't know, but I can assure you that there's a lot of people in government right now that I'd like to be investigating for their ties. That's for sure.
Well, have you looked into Lexi Lee?
Yeah. And I'm still wondering, and the same thing with our head of our public health. It's like, we're not going to ask that question. That's like the big elephant in the room. I've been like trying to figure out how to tweet about that. I guess it's out there now. Yeah. Why are we not asking those questions as far as where these authoritarian policies are coming from? And how is she able to get away with just telling us what to do without providing any evidence? It is so, if anyone should have lost their job, it would have been her. Just to try and Hinshaw. Yeah. Well, you can look at the provincial offices. Like I look at NATC, odd name for our vaccine group, but that's for another day. But when you look at the damage that's been done to our institutions just on an objective level, the mistakes that were made, you need to be accountable for those, regardless of whether you're working for a foreign entity or government. Like those, you need to be held accountable. You need to be, no one's actually pulled her in front of a committee and said, hey, like she should be completely grilled. A lot you can, I would say, bring in, like if it'll be interesting to see what's his name, is it Peckford? No, Preston Manning. is putting that together. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of authority they have to compel witnesses.
For it.
Did you? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it as well.
Yeah,
Mine
they're
as well.
looking for 5 commissioners, and because I have a law degree, I qualified. So
oh, good. I wouldn't. I still think my tweets would. Some of my tweets.
No,
would
your public
disqualify.
policy will qualify you. So public policy is one of the qualifiers. So your work in public policy, you just cannot be a member of a party.
Oh, good.
You have to be independent.
Okay.
Yeah, but go through and I'll put a nomination in for you if you do that.
I will. I'll look at it today.
Yeah, 5 Canadians are looking for. You just have to be over 18, and then have either law or health or policy or something along those lines that will contribute to the council.
I should be able to qualify then. Okay,
go for it. There's people poking around my LinkedIn since I did it, so
I don't use LinkedIn anymore. I'm there, but I have long hair, and it's a former version of myself.
Well, let's chat about that one a little bit, because we talked about that this morning, and what I was throwing out there as a potential policy or another statute was, I kind of loosely called it the Canadian Citizens Inquiry Act, so CCIA. And what it would do is, if you establish an inquiry or a commission under this framework, you then could get subpoena power, perjury. You can get all of the things that you need in order to actually do an inquiry, but on a citizen level, non-governmental, even down to maybe 50-50 payment. Like if you can raise the money for it, the government will match it dollar for dollar or something.
Right.
But if there was the Canadian Citizens Inquiry Act, which created a framework that we could just, on a whim, you come up with the question, you get enough support, maybe you need 1,000 signatures, whatever the framework is, that will then get you to the subpoena power.
Yeah,
I think it would be a good idea. Like, why don't we do more of these civilian inquiries? The only trouble with the Preston Manning one is they can send out invites, but they don't have the power to compel.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was wondering about.
Yeah, and even if they do the oath, I don't think they have the power of perjury either.
Right, no ramifications for,
right, like you can't charge after. So there should be a framework where citizens can have inquiries to get the subpoena power and perjury consequence on the table. Why not? Like government, if you got nothing to hide, why not let us go ahead and establish a whole whack of these all over the place for whatever? You can have it for residential schools. Like you can have it for a whole bunch of different things. But citizen-based, not government-led, not federal employees running it, not any of that.
It's just a framework you need to qualify for to get the issue tabled and to have mechanisms in place. Yeah,
right. Like the qualification could just simply be, how many signatures can you get on the issue? And then can you establish, maybe you need 5 commissioners and you need a secretary, you need a treasurer, like you need certain roles. But once they're established, you file a form and boom, it becomes official and you now have powers of subpoena.
If I had that tool for at least from 2009 to 2018, wow, so many slimy buggers would not have been allowed to sneak out the back door. I get that's the thing and you would get a lot of resistance for that, because a lot of it is when you are onto something, it's all about who you know. And just like the Clintons, there's always somebody in that spot that will have that decision-making authority that will not allow something to proceed, or will allow it to proceed if it benefits them politically. And that takes the power away from the citizenry to be able to hold people and individuals, institutions accountable, or at least it's the act of, it comes down to discovery, being able to get those emails, those text messages, just, oh, okay, what's this gap about? Right. You know, and to see who was in meetings and their ability to manipulate the machine, what you're describing would be a complete counter to that is citizen led. If you want me, if I can help you on that, you let me know, because I think that it's one of those things that if people knew that it could lead to that, they might check their behavior before they're a little bit more brutal with their Machiavellian ways behind the scenes, right?
Well, that would be a great thing for Pierre to come in on new transparency
100%.
and citizen inquiries.
It can't be all public. Yeah, it can't be all government tax funded. You have to have those, you know, litmus tests, a standardized system. But yeah, I fully agree, man. And Polyev could own that. And
like the convoy, they raised 10 million to support them. But can you imagine if they fundraise for an inquiry on X, Y, and Z? I don't see that being an issue. I see many Canadians putting $5, $10, $20, $50 towards a true inquiry.
It's literally Drano. It is. It's how do you unplug the sink? Let's get things moving here, and in the best interests of those that are dependent on you doing things in a right way. And when you don't, to have that, I love it for sure.
And if the net result is just recommendations, nothing binding, but just recommendations, I'd be fine with that as a result of it. And then we can push the government to adopt or accept or review the recommendations. But I would be 100% behind getting something like that in place.
A lot of what would be in that situation, unfortunately, we'd have to have some kind of reform with regards to our ethics and integrity commissioner and a lot of other things, because those white papers would be producing the evidence that would allow an MP to go and make that decision. I found out that in this whole process that wasn't until this happened that only an MP can ask for an investigation. Like the public itself.
That's your representative.
I had an interesting conversation with the Office of the Ethics Commissioner. Explain to me what? So in order for me to get this looked at, you need MP support is basically the way to look at it. But if they're all in on it,
yes. If they're all whipped to shut up, yes, you're not wrong. Like
we need so many shit disturbers in our House of Commons. Not even shit disturbers, because apparently now just standing up and pointing out common sense and logic is considered shit disturbing.
It's going to be domestic terrorism soon.
I've seen what they're saying about some stuff in Queensland. I saw some, and with Ardennes and stuff. They can try. I still think they've overplayed their hand. There's too many of us now. I think that if we stay positive, we stay good, we're moving forward, not spinning. And that's the big problem of it that we have now is coming into the winter, is that next press on us. But come spring, I think that it could even be before then. You had guys like Corey Morgan from the Western Standard. I don't like all of this. I don't agree with everything he says, but he put out a tweet last night saying, hey, if you've been thinking about, just a fair warning, you think about putting restrictions back in place, there will be more honking.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm really starting to think that the reason they put the Emergencies Act in was because of the momentum. I keep coming back to that. It really has to be that.
Just judging by the evidence we saw. Okay, so I'm going to just go with what I've seen in the testimony and nothing else, no speculation. What it looks like to me is the convoy had a workable plan to prolong this indefinitely. And that workable plan was cooperating with the city, working deals with the PMO office as well, working with the OPP, and moving most of the trucks out and busing everybody in. They were, I would say, about a week away from pulling off the full planning and execution of a very prolonged, legitimate, legal, peaceful protest. That had to be stopped.
It was picking up in other places around the world still to this day.
That had to be stopped, not just for Canada, but it would have been Canada, Vancouver, Edmonton. It would have been US. It would have been, everybody would have used that as a template.
Yeah.
And that's why it had to be stopped. Unfortunately, and I think there's another suspicion, very few people knew the inquiry was a requirement of the EA.
Yeah, I don't even... That's
very few people knew that. Had they known that, they definitely would have navigated this differently.
100%. I think one of the biggest belly laughs was coming to that conclusion. They didn't know that this was going to be a part of the process.
There's too many of them that go, sorry, what? I got to go where? Damn. And I would even say even the PM himself was surprised by it. He shouldn't have been. His dad is the reason why it's all there. That should have been part of the conversation during growing up. But I do believe many of them went, I'm sorry, what? We got to do what now? Didn't realize.
Nobody in the room mentioned that. Nobody. Like I've yet to even see in any of the dialogue or emails and stuff that's even like, you would have thought if me or you were there, we would have been like, okay, if you want to do this, you do it. What comes after? Like, let's look past Monday. What does Tuesday look like?
In closing, it says, and then you're going to have to be in inquiry within a year with a report. Ooh, you should have read the whole thing, guys.
And the timing for us is beautiful.
Something about this is, it feels cool that we got this inquiry. And even though I don't think we're going to get it, well, there is no conviction. This is an inquiry. No. But even though I don't think it's going to lead to charges to Trudeau and stuff like that, no. This is one heck of a cool thing that we're doing. The fact that we're dumping this out so much, we're streaming it. I've just finally got the PMO Ford's PDF. Did you read this thing yet?
Oh, the conversation?
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's real, to be honest with you, because it seems so out of
It was
character
put
for
out
both
by,
of
I
them.
think, I gotta check who put it out. I don't want to say names unless I know for sure.
I just put it back in the chat again, but
But I read it and like, really? One thing, of course, a narcissist is going to insult the intelligence of anybody that they don't agree with.
mm.
But to even say he doesn't need the police, like it's, I don't know. What was your thoughts on it?
I thought it was ballsy. It sounded like locker room talk. Ford saying he's going to shove a wire brush up there, that kind of talk. I want to actually hear the audio. I don't want to hear the transcript. I want to hear the audio. I want to hear how this conversation went. Were they buddies, or were they just playing off of each other, or is it typed? This is such a weird conversation.
If it is, it's so telling into the, like, that is the most revealing. They're all in it together. Like I said, it always felt like WWE. They all fight out in public, but at the end of the day, they drink from the same whiskey bottle.
Told you, they're all back to back. Blue and red are back to back.
Yeah, but to have that, to have the locker, again, it comes back to emotional maturity. I expect adults to be leading our country. And that was my biggest mistake, is thinking that they could actually be adults. It is nothing but the people in the cool table in high school. You know, that feeling, like I was friends with everybody in high school, but you knew these people that thought they were better than everybody else. They talk down to you. They have the ability to create problems if you don't, you know, if they just look at you, or you look at them the wrong way.
In a lot of ways, they're pedestal, though. In a lot of ways, people put them up on that pedestal too, though.
And it's created. I think a lot of it is that the machine, they're so good at giving focus and giving the messaging they want around a certain individual for the time period, for the message that they're polling says this is what we need, A, B, and C. And the willingness for those that are compromised, or at least a part of the team, to bend is why we see politicians say one thing when they're running, and then they get elected and they're a completely different person. And
why
you can say,
go ahead. Sorry. No, sorry. I was going to say, why do we forget that every cycle? Why do we forget every cycle? It's like we just forgot that they lie, and then all of a sudden, boom! It's like, oh, I love everything you're saying. Like, why do we have that amnesia? It's like 51st dates. Every single election cycle, we forget the last one.
Yeah, well, it's like that weird guy saying, "Oh, humans are hackable," and people are like, "Oh, when is that going to occur?" And I'm like, "Did you not see people go after toilet paper?"
Yeah,
like maybe it's already occurring because we are such pattern-based thinkers. We're like computers already, right? We've all got our frame of reference, and we've all got our hard drives different, bigger, smaller, needs to be defragged. But we have such a, I think it's one of those things where it's easier to just go along than to face that head on, that there may be a much bigger problem here.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone's looking for a savior. We're always looking for someone to put on that pedestal and to be, they're the ones that are going to solve the problem, instead of people looking in the mirror and saying, I got to deal with what I can control, but I'm not going to compromise my principles in order to fit your narrative. You know, you're either who you are or who you aren't, right? And I think too many people don't have a purpose. They don't know what direction they want to go do. You know, like they're fearful for their friends, their family. Nothing has been normal for for a very long time. We can go way back, but for the last 2 years, it's just spin and being told that you're a bad human being for questioning things that are remote, like innate human functions of being, you know, everything's been flipped on its head. It's a parallel universe. I oftentimes wonder what CERN's up to, right? It's like
CERN, the research.
Yeah, you wake up now. Are we in a different, like, is this a multiverse? And like, because I feel like I woke up one day and all of a sudden, you know, no charter, no constitution, everyone's turning into these hissing, scary people. And I've just been watching it for the last couple of years, looking at the damage and going, you guys, you know, if we don't ever acknowledge the wrongs, that's where I'm at now. I wish everyone would come out and, you know, will I accept the apology? Yeah.
Sure.
Does that mean that there's no amnesty? Like, there's no, obviously, again, if you want to apologize, that's fine. It's helpful for you. Does it mean I want to hang out with you? No. If you acknowledge you did wrong, fantastic. What are you doing now to change that? Join us. Fantastic. Let's try and come together and heal the country. But they won't let that happen right now. And that's the weirdest, creepiest part of it all.
One thing that I think is a silver lining that's come out of it is there's a huge desire for truth now. It does seem like we're past this whole...
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, it is beautiful. Like, we're past this whole tabloid phase. Like in the 80s and 90s, we were all just eating up garbage information and enjoying every piece of it. Yeah. But it now seems like we are on a diet of truth. We really do want truth. We're really sick and tired of getting this junk food information diet. So that's kind of cool to see. And we're also, I guess, maybe as a result of the Fed media being so bad, we are now breaking away and going right back to grassroots journalism. So this is
silver lining.
This is a great silver lining. And I can tell you, Chris, for me personally, even though we're all facing, tough roads, and this whole MP to Ottawa thing is a tough road and all that kind of stuff, I haven't been happier than I have been in quite some time, because we're therapeutically talking and going through it together. And there's a group of people who are, I'm not going to say like minds or similar minds or exact same or anything like that, but we're all looking for the truth. And
it's a frequency. There's a certain, we not agree on everything, but there are certain things you turn that dial and we are so in tune.
And what I liked about the particular group growing here was, for example, a few days ago, we ran into an article about Danielle Smith being supportive of Convoy 2.0. And exactly, that was the face we made too. And then we pulled up the article, and then by the morning, all the way to the lunch break, we have already sleuthed it all the way down to clickbait, recycling old information. This is not true. They're just using names and different events at different times, putting together into a recent article. So I love
that would be the dumbest thing she ever did.
Well, no, there's some hints about, some talk about, there's some of it's true. Okay, some of it's true, but she didn't call for a Convoy 2.0.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, because then it's all on her if it doesn't go right, and that will draw the
all
we got to do.
Hurt one wheel over one toe, and it's all over for her. I get it. But what I liked about it was this group said, I want to find out more. I'm not just going to run and tweet and show everybody this article I found.
I think we're all guilty of doing it at times, but we can't afford to be that way anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's a natural desire because of the consequence of the crap media for so long, the junk food media for so long. We have all just said enough. I actually want to look under the covers a little bit more now. And because of that, we are definitely weeding out a lot more truth. And this inquiry is helping us a lot. Because, and what I keep telling people is, we're going to get all the information now. We're going to get all the testimony now. It's all going to be recorded now. And we're going to get all the documents now. But there's a huge chunk of this truth we're not going to find out till later, not just because we have to dig through it first, but because as time goes by, people are going to be changing their story. They're going to be saying something else in the public. The new nugget's going to come out. Little things like that's going to happen. So we are nowhere near finding the end of this truth. This is just very, very much just the beginning, and we're 21 days into it.
And where would we be if this inquiry didn't have to happen? Like, I don't think people appreciate the window into this.
Yeah. And this is why I kind of think they messed up and didn't know that this was going to happen, because this does not help them at all, having this inquiry.
And that's exactly right. No, I think that's exactly right. Because I mean, again, if this was a different time and a different place, the idea that my emails or my text messages could be made to the public, I would have never worried, because I was always, hey, this I was always the risk guy, right? So this is what can go wrong if you do this. How can it come back and bite you? But when you see these communications from these operatives and you start to see how the game really does work, that I think is not saying, obviously it's not common, but it's so important for people in just the general public to be able to understand not only how shady it is, but how it is not a blanket uniform way of thinking. There are good people there.
Yes.
There are horrible people there. And that's what, for me, my fear was when all the mandates came in, a lot of people were cleared out. If I was still with government or still doing the work, it's part of I retired because of it, because there was no way I was going to be able to function without being a part of that. And so it was easy for me to just leave the game and move. But that's kind of what I'm getting the most kick out of, is seeing. I wish there was more. I think there should be more text messages. I want to see what was on Slowly's phone, like all these other things. But at the end of the day, I'm still super happy that we have that window. Afterwards, the extrapolating all of the data and to create, okay, what was actually going on. I'm sure you've got, like I used to do that, timelines of who said what when, just so we can get a full scope of what was going on. I'm not doing that now. There's too much other stuff I need to be doing, but I know that there are some, I can even probably name some of the accounts that are doing a great job, but I'm looking forward to what their final summary is and the books that are going to be written out of this.
Yep.
So again, it's that discovery. 99% of the time, it's just trying to get documents from people, especially metadata and stuff. Is what were you doing? What were you saying? Because you said this, but all your documents don't line up, and that's when you start to see people who would so-called be protected be pushed to the curb a little bit. Well, the bus driver's revving the engine, getting ready to go. And the more we see by the end of this, I think we're still pretty firm. I would not be surprised. I think Mendocino will be the first one. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
But Blair, like there's so many of them. Like I can't believe that's the thing about it.
Omar got thrown on the bus yesterday.
Yeah, again, so it's one after another, and I think that what the sad part is I don't know if Brenda Lucky was removed. Pardon me, and we did have a new RCMP commissioner. Do I think that there would be action taken? Well, I don't. Like that's the thing. It's not like I've lost faith in it. It's what should happen, because as a deterrent, you don't want to have a two-tiered legal system. You don't want to have a two-tiered political. You know that creates long-term problems as far as public sentiment goes. Mm-hmm. But when you have clear examples like this, I cannot see them not being able to act. They must be able to act on something. And Mendocino is the easiest one, I think. But I don't know if the public would be satisfied with just that when you see all the other names that are a part of this, as far as making political moves where legality was not the consideration, I think is the, how do we prevent it from happening again, right? And so I think it will, unless we, can we vote for our RCMP? Can we have an election for the RCMP chief?
It should be more like the States where we vote in our sheriffs and stuff like that.
It should be, because that way, why would you have that?
Well, you get more political then. Right, they start placating and making deals. Like the more politics you put into that, like, that's where I would have trouble with it. Because then, do you want to share
with judges?
Exactly, like they're more worried about getting reelected, and then that factors into the decision making.
So term limits,
even that, I'm not a huge fan of, because what if you have a good person and you're fleshing them out because of a time? Like, what you actually have a really good person in there, you're going to flesh them out after a while.
Yeah,
there's no simple answer.
Disclosure of interests, right? I think that's probably what I would suggest is one of the most important things that needs to happen is that if you own shares, and if you're going to be a public figure, your private dealings should be made public.
Mm-hmm. Now, today's testimony, this little infrastructure thing came up. Did you know about this? This is an Alberta statute. So, Critical Infrastructure Defense Act, Statute of Alberta. 2020.
First tabled in 2020?
This is law now. Infrastructure 2020, retrieved in 2022, new version. This gave them everything they needed to do anything they needed to do with the border, highways are considered infrastructure, critical infrastructure. So this is one of those laws that the PMO office didn't realize, or maybe did realize and didn't care that existed.
And this was introduced as yesterday or today?
Yep.
Brilliant.
And there's another one. Let me get you the other one. If you don't know about it, it was amazing. There it is. Let me go get it. Okay, popping up. There we go. That's good enough. It's the table of contents.
That's interesting. They would have put that in at the
timing. Look at this one. Look at this one. This is a federal one. International Bridges and Tunnels Act.
2007.
And under security and safety of this act, this is federal. The minister is of the opinion that there is an immediate threat to the security or safety of any international bridge or tunnel. The minister may make directions, including directions respecting the evacuation of the bridge or tunnel and the diversion of traffic or persons, requiring any person to do or to refrain from doing anything that was an opinion, not even a judgment, in the opinion of the minister, it is appropriate to do and refrain. Omar's in trouble.
Yeah,
he's the one that could have signed the bridge to be cleared without EA. That's what this came up yesterday. Thank you, Brendan Miller.
Yeah.
And
Omar's is Omar testifying? Yes,
he is on the list. Yeah, we will see him. I think that's another bus throwing right there.
For those days when it's Freeland, Trudeau, and whatnot, I'll probably be sitting on the stream all day, just popcorn and.
You're welcome to. I think we'll have a full set on here. We'll all be watching that one thoroughly. But yeah, I think Omar's next on that list for.
I'm sorry we
Sorry,
didn't get through too many questions. I'll try and keep my
That's okay.
my
What I do on the
responses.
next break and what I do at the
Sorry,
end,
guys.
I go through them all. They love you anyways, Chris, and they like hearing you. So
Well, I love them too.
Hey Jay, FOIP request would get the audio. No freedom of information. We're gonna try. Look, right, Railroaded, and Railroaded is my mod. She set up my Discord server. Railroaded is a superstar. You gotta get yourself a Railroaded. It's amazing. Yes, we're going to be following up on that and try and get all that information because I do want the audio version of that. I want to hear what it sounded like.
Yeah. Tone is so important there, even the breaks in between responses.
Is it going to be just like a robot back and forth, or is it going to sound like the Bush and Trump locker room talk? Remember in the bus when Trump was...
When you look at the two personalities,
yeah,
I want the audio so much, right?
Well, audio's back on this, so here we go, folks.
All right, guys, take care. I will talk to you. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.
Got it. Take care, everybody. Bye, Chris.
The commission is reconvened. La commission reprend.
There's no doubt the commissioner's jokes are falling flat the last couple of days, huh? Not even a chuckle anymore. Nobody's laughing. Okay, I'm all over the place with this guy. I'm all over the place with him. I like his way he talks. I like the way he thinks. I like the way he puts information out. I like the way he's trying to be complete. We definitely went through a good phase with him. But now the last about 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so have been different for me. He's talking about occupiers. He's talking about Cornwall. Listen, guys, if we want to talk about Cornwall, Cornwall was less than an afternoon. They came and went. It didn't do anything. Now we keep hearing it like it's one of the major blockages. Ditto with Blue Water. We heard about that from the OPP already. They cleared it. It was 40 kilometers away from the bridge itself. And then he gets into a bunch of potentials and possibles. He started doing that. Oh, darn. He was doing so good. He was doing so good. Let me just pause this banner for a bit. All right. Well, we do have a lot of stars to go through. So let's go ahead and get some. This little bit is not this witness. It was the first witness. Marlin, the RCMP officer or commander or sergeant from Alberta. But let's do this. None of them are natural and they're all paid by the same man. Okay, so Dave's point here was everybody's paid by the government. And this was at the end of another comment where we were talking about whether or not the Commission Council was fair. And they're all paid by the same hand. Dave's right. These are all federal employees. Well, not employees, not necessarily employees, but they're all paid by the federal government, which is us. So we're all paying for it. But I do still think that the Commission Council has been pretty good at calling out both sides, bringing bad things in. And to answer one of your questions earlier about this particular Commission Council asking questions here, I think two things happened with her. One, she's taken over from the guy who passed out yesterday. So she wasn't really prepped for this particular witness. It wasn't her questions. She didn't really write them. She took it over. So within like 24 hours, she's going through them. So maybe they're not the questions she would have asked. But I also think that she's challenging the narrative too. So when you hear them talk about the narrative in a way that you think, oh no, it looks like she's supporting the narrative, do also understand that she's putting it forward in front of a witness and she doesn't necessarily know what he's going to say. So as we saw quite a few times with this witness, you kind of thought the question was coming out and expecting like a yes or I agree, because they do you agree with that statement? That's almost implying that they want a yes out of you. But he came back with like, I completely disagree with that statement. So kind of look at it like she's putting these all forward to be tested by the witness. It doesn't mean she agrees with them, and that's where her position is. And the more that she's pulling out both narratives and putting them forward to be tested, frankly, the better. That's what examination's for. Examination is for bringing forward basically the allegations and the pieces of it, and then put it forward in front of a witness and see what they say. So I don't think she's narrative driving, but she's narrative exposing, if that makes sense to you. Because she doesn't actually have a buy-in on either one of them. At least she shouldn't. And even if she does, as a good lawyer, you can put that aside. You're still trying to challenge the evidence and make sure it's good or bad. So when you hear her talk about things like removing these people with force and stuff like that, it's not necessarily that she agrees with that. She's just seeing what the witness will say to it. Okay, so Dave, you're right. Yeah, they all get a paycheck that says taxpayers on it. But how else do you want them paid? No, we talked about like crowdfunding inquiries and stuff. I think there's some stars for that later. Other than that, because that's not in place now, how else would we pay them, compensate them? But yeah, works out just fine. Hey, Eleanor. Thanks, Railroad for links. The CEO. Okay, so we're getting into the CEO of a stat site and connections to the PMO office. Yes, no, maybe. We got a lot to cover today, so I'll kind of step over that one, Eleanor, if you don't mind. Dave, oh, they wanted Army. Yeah. Let's not forget about that in the RCMP testimony this morning. Canadian Armed Forces, they wanted equipment, they wanted resources. Resources could be people, it could be bullets, it could be tanks, it could be cranes to pick up trucks and equipment. It could be lots of different things. The Army definitely has a lot of things. Not a huge fan of the Army being used as a resourcer during peaceful times at all. As a last resourcer, before you go any further, maybe like, hey, can we borrow your tow trucks type of deal, but don't send armed soldiers with them. I wouldn't be too averse to that, especially in natural cause emergencies and stuff like that. You will see the Army participating all the time, or armed forces participating all the time. So I don't really have a real problem with them helping, but I'm glad they have checks and balances there, and they have limits too. And they were saying no, because even just the optics of it, because it's not a natural emergency or anything like that. It would be in a protesting environment. Lots of implied what side are they on would be happening. So stay out of it. The armed forces should and does a good job in staying out of politics. The president. Okay, sorry, Eleanor. We're going to skip this one because it may be relevant or not, but all it's supporting is whether or not the site that we're getting some stats from are good. And even the stats, it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to pass on that, Eleanor, if you don't mind. Fuichi, gotcha on the other live streams. Oh, okay. So I guess if we get onto the topics, we see some bots show up. Sure. We get our share of them too. And we got some great mods on that. To trucks, they will use the trucks to help us, or we will fine you, confiscate your trucks, right, or put you in prison, right. The same threats in Ottawa. If you don't follow our orders, we have heard that before. Exactly. That's what you're noticing, Dave. You heard that in Ottawa. We even heard that in Windsor. They wanted to, instead of compensate and persuade and convince, they wanted to force and compel and threaten. And these are the tow truck drivers, not even protesters. These are just the support staff. And it's how they treat their support staff. Ugh, yeah, we have no chance. We're just at the bottom of their boots at that level. That's how they're treating support staff. Never should have been an ask. Yeah, for the Army, armed forces. You're right, Prairie. You're right. This is not like you're in Manitoba. So when there's a big flood, yes, bring in some stuff, bring in some equipment. Let's move some sandbags. Sure. That's how you're helping Canada. Getting into political issues, this is where the armed forces draw the line. And they probably drew it for that reason right there. This is a political issue. This is a protest against government, legal. Even if it's not fully legal, it's minor, and local police forces, RCMP, should handle it. Good call there, armed forces. And that's the second time we've heard that. So now we heard Alberta asked, Alberta Armed Forces, well, the ones stationed there. And then Ottawa did. He was pissed he couldn't get the forces in. Maybe, sure. Pissed, I don't know about that, but frustrated, didn't like it, thought it would be an easy ask. Doesn't understand why it's not. If you're lost in the bubble and you're part of the narrative, you probably think it is a big problem. Maybe they just wanted the help and didn't understand why they couldn't get it. I don't know about pissed, but not pleased, I'll give you that. Yeah, of course, and I'm just commenting on the fact that it's even insane that they even went there. You're talking about some farmers and truckers, mostly farmers. Pushing hard for a central federal force. Yeah, Clay. Next witness too, right? Because this is the RCP one we're talking about here. Next witness too, all over the central. James. Oh man, sounds like a burn right there. Yeah, I forget what this one was specifically for, James, but at the time, yeah, something bad came out for him. Denied support, and then he bought. Oh, maybe this. Yeah, they went and bought tow trucks. So they didn't get support from the army or armed forces. So they went and bought tow trucks themselves. And then the questions came out later, like who's going to drive them, who's going to operate them. Well, we had plenty of people that could drive it, and few people that could operate the cranes and the lifts and stuff like that. No problem. How hard do you think this is? Is people can drive. And you also listen to this. Okay. Everyone left under their own steam. No one was. Yeah. So for Coots, when you were listening to this guy talk, he was talking like you're going to have to drag people out of there. It was going to be horrible. It was going to be bad. It was going to be crazy. But the truth is, at the end of it, when the bag of guns showed up, the protesters and people organizing and being more involved understood the situation changed, dynamic changed. And I'm not making that up. That's exactly what they said when they were disbanding. And they were voluntarily just driving away. But if you listen to the RCMP at this time, they're talking like that's not even an option. Like, that's not even an option. We have to go and drag them all out. We're going to have to round them all up. We have to get big cranes to move all this equipment. Like, this is going to be a serious cleanup. And this is how they were designing it. Whatever happened to best case scenario planning? Best case scenario, they leave on their own accord. Anyways, that's all we were hearing at this point. So I wanted to say, hey, while we're listening to all of this pretend what if could have been problems, just remember everybody drove away on their own accord. On steam. They left because they decided to leave. So all we were hearing was paranoia. This is the people's paranoia, or the government paranoia commission, really. What could have happened? That's the headline here. It took all morning to get him to say that. Brought the tow trucks. Wow, what a waste of taxpayers' money. So he bought tow trucks. Waste of taxpayer money? I don't know. Maybe the RCMP, instead of hiring tow trucks as often, maybe they'll do some of it themselves now. But Dave, what you're seeing here is RCMP using resources and laws and working the problem with existing stuff. No need for the EA. No matter how silly it may seem to us, at least to them, they thought they were problem solving. So kudos to them to work the problem. And they finished it before the EA was dropped. There was way too much loose goose in this testimony. I don't know. Ask them. Can't outmigrate. Yeah, so Ichi, this is not as strict as court would be. You don't hear a lot of objections, and there is hearsay, speculation, testimony from both sides of the microphone. All of that's happening. But at least it's happening to everybody all the time. And what that does mean to us is we're just let them talk. Let them talk. We don't really want them to be quiet. We want them to talk. It's going to help us for the evidence stage. What about announcements of Trudeau having prior knowledge of foreign interference? I think later we heard that the fundraising was bogus. The foreign issues around foreign funding was bogus. After the reports and because of all the hacked data was released and stuff, they looked into that. CBC, CTV, and all that. And it just simply was non-significant. Now, what are they calling foreign interference? They haven't really brought anything forward. They talked about maybe a country singer playing at the Coots, and maybe he dropped off food from a helicopter. Turned out that wasn't true. We spent a lot of time talking about it, but it turned out it wasn't true. I don't even know what the foreign interference was. They haven't brought any of that forward. So far, foreign was willing to help us with tow trucks. Foreign was willing to help us with National Guard if we wanted it. Foreign was willing to help put pressure on from governors. So, are you talking about the foreign influence that the government to government was going to give? That's all we've heard so far. We haven't heard about any foreign interference with the protesters. So, yeah, great question, Weechi. Where is that? Where are we going with that? And that certainly was one of his announcement items, foreign interference. We're worried about that. They really don't like that people can think for themselves. You're seeing that, Dave, aren't you? Herding them like cats, comments like that. all of them are doing different things, talking about it like it's a bad thing. Like, do you hear how they talk about it like in a derogatory way? The fact that people have independent minds. Oh, all of that should make you mad and make you want to stand up to that independently. You don't need a leader to stand up independently. Potential that resources could be stretched. Again, with this, what all these problems we can make up right now that never did happen. Like, we're even talking about this after the fact, and they're still talking about it like their mind is back there and it could have still happened. Aside from local police sources or services. So the question was around potential resources that could be stretched. And then he actually responded with 2 other resources that were available, and then they ignored it at the end of the question. So aside from local police services and First Nation services, aside from all those police services, your other police services, except for those ones, were stretched, right? And he's like, well, that just leaves RCMP then. Well, I guess under your question, if it was only the RCMP and we had to disregard the local and the First Nations, then we would be stretched. Well, yeah, that hypothetical sounds about right. But this is how some of the testimony questioning has been going. Hopefully the commissioner, he's been around the block a few times. He doesn't fall for stuff like this anymore. The lawyers might think they're cute. The witnesses might think they're cute. But hopefully the commissioner sees it right through it like we are. It does go to show how powerful people can be with social media. That's why they're pushing against content control of the internet. C11, Dave. C11. C11, and there'll be more. They're going after crypto. They're going after content creators. They're going after social media. They want all those buttons. Okay, they're in my ear right now. Let me do this. We'll keep an eye on it. So good point, Dave. This one. So he is asking, when resources are used, you have less resources to use. Yes, okay, and sorry, I got to. There you go. They muted it. Totally. Of course. You've got 10 bottles of beer on the wall, and you take one down, pass it around, you got 9. Okay, thanks for that lesson, guys. So when you use resources, you have less. You're earning your money today, there, lawyer. Of course. It's such a weird thing to try and make a point out of, like, well, then now we need the EA. Well, we're down to 7 bottles of beer on the wall. Call in the EA. No. Don't be silly. They said, oh, here we go. I absolutely agree, Railroaded, that he has to be there now. Like, he should absolutely be there. He should just walk in there and ask him what time he's sitting down, because he's been called so many times. His name's been brought up. That video's been brought up. His charges have been brought up. Again, he's not convicted. He's not spending time. Was in jail because he's denied bail, for sure. But you're all bringing that up. Like, the commissioner should be worried about this. Preacher, too? So Diagonalon, Farfada, Preacher, Pat. How many do we need? How many boogeymans that don't exist do we need? Goodness. I really want to see Pastor Pulaski there. He should be there now. He's been called so many times. His reputation's been called so many times. He should be there to defend himself. I like his answers there. If they did materialize, but I'm not sure if they ever did. So is he spitting? Sorry, he's back. Okay. I don't even know what this question means anyways. We'll let that one go. Okay, enjoy the rest. We'll talk soon. We didn't need to hear him tell us what time to come back. Did he say Monday, though? Did he say Monday? Damn. I missed that part. Did you say Monday? I think he said Monday at 9:30. Darn. That was the one thing I was waiting for all day. Hold on. Let me go find out. Did you say Monday? Anybody catch it? Yeah. It's just right at the moment there. Yep, he said Monday. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Azario. Oh, okay, guys. I got 24 minutes or so, and that's it. And then the stream's done. Very, very long day. Very, very long day. Yeah, thanks, Azario, Railroad and Azario. Thanks for getting me that. Oh, how many new laws did we find out that they had? Okay, we found out yet another one. Keeping Ontario Open for Business Act. Keeping Ontario Open for Business Act. They even had an act there to help businesses and keep them open. And that included emergency measures for clearing things like the bridges, infrastructure. They got acts and laws up to yin-yang here, don't they? So many. And I didn't like the commissioner's questions at the end there. He's asking this guy to kind of basically write his recommendations, talk about more authority, cooperation between the EAs. I'm glad he said no to that one. But I didn't hear him once say, how do we communicate with the people better? They keep talking about how there's so much confusion, who's the leader, what do they want, all this other stuff. They're not really talking about communicating with them. More like collecting information. Reopening Ontario Act. Yeah, there's a few of them, Azario. So here's the Keeping Ontario. Yeah, Reopening Ontario Act. The International Bridges and Tunnels Act. That was a federal one. Gave them all the powers they need. I liked how Alberta took them through the Ontario Emergency Act and said, hey, look, you got all these sections here that would have gotten the job done, right? For tow trucks? And he's like, oh, yeah. And where was Brendan on the OPP? Commissioner Courig testified clearly, very loudly, that he did put on the table compelling tow truck drivers. And this witness said, yes, Commissioner Courig was here. He was part of it. We listened to what he had to say. We got recommendations from him. But everybody's skipping over that one that got dropped. And that was compelling tow truck drivers. I don't know, man. It's so weird. Hey, 10th. Guards and their masters to not communicate. I love your perspective. Okay, so folks, there's 100 for that. But what I do want to do is jump to a couple of them. Geez, where do we start here? Goose, what do you got here? Oh yeah, did you hear that? Who was it? That was the RCMP. What was he talking about? A female officer? No, that was a question to him by Brendan, wasn't it? Goose, Brendan asked about that, and he said, did you hear about this part of the narrative that the female officer? I didn't hear about that before. Is that the rumor that OPP brought this bag of guns in? I didn't hear anything about that, Goose. So if you have more info, please share. But I kind of sort of recall him saying that. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's old. Here we go again. The province calling them out as having tools available. We talked about that at lunch. It was great how Saskatchewan kept doing that with each witness, calling you out. Oh, railroad, that's cool. I do think it was a plan to stop the protest, but they definitely know where it's going. To remember Trudeau requisition. Really? Did he get 86,000 rounds of tear gas 2 years ago? What is he prepping for? What are these people expecting? Are they expecting us to revolt because they know that what they're doing is wrong? Is that kind of the narrative they're going with this? Hey, Eleanor. It's not a trial, right? Nope. Not trial. Scares me that the flow of this is leading to not enough evidence to say PMO was in the wrong. But Eleanor, you got it backwards. That's not the burden of proof. The burden of proof is not to prove that the PMO was wrong. The burden of proof is on the government to prove that they had the right to invoke it. So you had the burden of proof wrong, Eleanor, which is good because the burden is on the government to show that they had everything. They had the right to invoke it. They're not going to reach it there. There's just so many laws that were available. And now I think what the commissioner might be thinking at this stage is maybe clarifying laws, maybe make it easier to understand because he thinks people didn't understand. Again, not the EAA. We had the Canadian Constitution Foundation establish very well today with this witness that it's a last resort. The legal requirement is last resort. And this witness said, oh, I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, all of a sudden, he doesn't understand the acts. But it's a last resort. That's a legal standard, which means what it says. No other options. And this is one thing that we keep forgetting about because we keep talking about whether or not the EA had the right to move people and corral people and take away the property and cancel their bank accounts and stuff like that. Last resort. It has to be the last resort. We got nothing but acts after acts. We got acts from Alberta. We got acts from Ontario. We got acts from the federal government. All of them available at all times in the various areas. And sure enough, all we heard today from all witnesses for the last 2 days really is all about what was available, what could have been used, what was being used. And frankly, the EA was not helpful. It didn't add much to anybody's toolbox. It also came very late. What do we got here, Clay? It means the feds like being in the kitchen of Ottawa, but not one of them can take the heat. Yeah. Are we seeing really weak leaders here, or are we seeing people covering their butts and acting like they're weak? What's the real truth here? Are we seeing weak leaders, and that includes JT, all the way to the paranoia that the truckers were coming after him and he had to run away from Ottawa? Are we seeing like really weak leaders, or are they pretending to be in order to save their butt? I don't know what to say, because some of the stuff that these people say implies that they are very weak inside and they have so much fear and so many phobias that they can't even handle them. Is that really how they are? Or is that, okay, I'm going to ask you, it's going to be loaded. Is that really how they are? Am I just misinterpreting it? Or is there something else going on here? Okay. Because they're all really saying, we're not competent. We're very incompetent. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know who to call. You even heard the city of Ottawa really, really harshly attacking this witness, because he's the government of Ontario, for not replacing slowly. Our board was sending signals. Who was the one that was supposed to inform them of their options? He's like, well, their advisor. Well, they said that they didn't know what to do. Why didn't you guys have bells ringing on your side? Really? What are you asking for, city of Ottawa? Your board can ask a question, your police board can ask a question, then boom, Ontario's taking over your local police? You guys, are you even looking at what it is you're asking for? And what if it comes true? What if it comes true? What if the next time there's another peaceful protest and like in 2 hours, the Paul Chump trigger is triggered of Section 9 of the Police Services Act, and then boom, the Ontario Provincial Police or RCMP come in and take over your police force? I guarantee you, the very first time that that's ever executed, the police force itself is going to fight back. You have two sides with guns, and they know how to use it. And you want to go start a fight over territory? And Commissioner, I think you're a little bit confused about jurisdiction. There is no jurisdiction overlap. You used that term. You said, what should we do with overlaps? Like, for example, the border and then down the road. No, dude, there's no overlap. There's clear lines. What you're trying to say, maybe what you should have been clearer on, is impact of one jurisdiction on another. Sure, maybe. Like maybe the road down into the town or the city is being blocked, and that's the city jurisdiction, and is backing up the bridge, which is federal jurisdiction, or the border. There's no overlap. And it's kind of confusing that he said that. And he also said overlap of the EAs. So he's confused about jurisdiction, and he's also confused about the EAs. That's not cool. He shouldn't be confused. Of all people, he should understand this very well. Oh, yeah, if you want to join my Discord, Railroad has put the link in here a couple times. Feel free to join my Discord. Stunt, I'd love to join your server. Send me an invite. Let me know how I can get on there. Add you as a friend, that whole 9 yards. Be cool. Goose, you like this guy. Okay, so you like this witness. I want to separate my like and dislike for this man. I like his demeanor. I like his professionalism. I like the way he spoke. His pauses were a little long. Like some of the questions was, is today Thursday? Yes. Like that long pause. It's kind of like he's a computer and it's processing or something like that. And a lot of times when he did that, I kind of had in my head the modem sound from the 90s and stuff when we would connect to the internet. You hear that modem sound as you're waiting for it to connect. It's kind of what I was going through my head every time he took those long pauses. So as a witness, I liked him. As a professional, I didn't like him because he was coming from occupier standpoint. He was coming from authoritative standpoint. He was coming from, and a couple of times he did talk about the charter and how important it was. So don't get me wrong, I did not miss that part. But he also kept saying occupation, occupation, occupation. And for somebody who knows what the statutes are, he should know, he's probably very abreast of it, it wasn't declared an occupation. So please stop calling it an occupation. Now, I do know 10th and a few of you in my chat, remind me that, yeah, this is part of the program and this is how they do it. They just keep repeating lies until you believe them. I get it. But I'm also going to keep repeating that I don't think they should be doing that. So every time I say occupation, you might hear me get flustered over it because it wasn't declared that. Minister Marco didn't declare it that. Had he declared it that, there's yet another list of tools that become available to them. So please, you guys, you're all doing it. It's not even true. Sorry, Don, I'm gonna have to skip that one because it's in reference to a different one I skipped. I think there's anything to do with this guy that gets it done. Yeah, he did seem like a good witness, but again, I didn't like his professional take. He was authoritative. He was smart. He knew about the laws and all that kind of stuff. Like I went up and down with him. There were parts where I was like, yeah, you go, keep saying it, charter, rights. And then right at the end, he kind of just flushed it all away from me when he was saying to the commissioner, yeah, I think there should be limits on protest. You didn't say limits on government actions to protest. You said limits on protest. Like in his mind, the problem was the protest. Protesters, occupiers. His mind, it was always them. How do we navigate it? How do we use the laws? How do we not infringe their rights? Was all going through his head. But he didn't take the position of they're peaceful protesters and they deserve to be listened to. I don't hear any of them talking like that, especially the commissioner. He's talking about authoritative things like clarification around the laws. There you go. Yeah, I'm starting to turn on him. He listed off a bunch of protests, but didn't clarify that they were small at various times and all cleared by 13th. So at one point he iterated, and this was the government of Canada, he iterated through a list of all the different protests. Sarnia, Blue Water Bridge, Windsor, Cornwall. Boy, every time they say Cornwall, that bugs me because I know how tiny that was and how short that was and how ineffective that was. He's part of that narrative. He's definitely bolstering the government of Canada's narrative that multiple ports of entries this was a coordinated attack, right? This witness said coordinated attack. He thought it was a coordinated attack to thin out police services. That's a conspiracy theory. That right there is a conspiracy theory because that requires an unknown person that nobody's identified who's coordinating this all, or at least a group that has a group of leaders. We've already established multiple times that this is so fragmented that there was no coordination going on. But yet this witness said, because that's a conspiracy theory that he just said there, that he believes it was coordinated and it was a strategy to stretch out police services. Based on what, Mr. Evidence? You liked evidence and you like laws, but you throw that one out there. That's a conspiracy theory. It hasn't been proven. It's a conspiracy in that, well, you're saying something happened and coordinated, big event. And it's a theory because it hasn't been proven. Guys, don't miss those. They're lying. Okay, Peace, what do you got here? I keep hearing jurisdiction, which is good, but then it seems to me the police were defending their right alone to be totalitarian instead of protecting civilian rights. Yeah, and I don't know if you caught all of it in the first couple of weeks there, Peace, but OPS was asking the OPP for illegal help, things that are not legal. It's not jurisdictional, but good thing, at least the OPP said no. He forgot to add that the protesters didn't take the bait despite JT's inflammatory comments and police actions and threats to kidnap children, take away dogs, they're stealing fuel, they're threatening their businesses, threatening their insurance, threatening their licenses, threatening. We have a whole whack of actual documented threats by the government on the people, but you fart in the wind and it's headed towards the PM and they call that a threat. Chemical warfare. Right there. You guys had beams. You were purposely doing that. Like, there's no adult in the room right now, is what I'm trying to say here. There appears to be no adults in the room right now in the inquiry that we're watching. They're talking like inexperienced children. I am so worried that everything's going to be bad. Well, you sound like an immature, inexperienced person. You're not rooting it in reality. Hypothetical came up today as an explanation for going ahead with telling the story. Hypothetically speaking, if this happened, what do you think? Do you think that would be a bad thing? Yeah, we're going potential. What did he call it? He called it the art of possibilities. He called it the art of possibilities, which is making up things and then reacting to it. The art of possibilities. No science, and art. Your perspective, right? Wow, this is insane. That deal was being done, and we already heard that it was the OPS who ended the deal. Shame on both of these two for allowing this. So this was it the city? Yeah, the city lawyer talking to him and said, hey, you know about that deal with the mayor to move the trucks and then do all that stuff? He's like, yeah, I was kind of aware of it. Yeah, well, that fell apart and didn't work. No, that was not the testimony. That's not what we heard. What we heard from the OPS was the deal was ongoing, happening on February 14th. It was the OPS who got the call from the PPS that says the EA is coming down, and they shut it down. The OPS shut that deal down. But yet here's the lawyer saying, oh, you know, that deal, it fell apart, it didn't work, implying like the convoy participants weren't participating with that deal. 100 BS. That is completely not true. We heard it 1,000 times that it was in place. They were moving the trucks. PPS said, we don't want any more trucks here. And they're the ones that nixed it on the 24th or on the 14th. That frustrates me when people are up there completely lying. That was a complete lie. And then she got him to say, yeah, okay, I agree with that. He clearly wasn't watching all the testimony. He wasn't watching all the testimony. But 100%, that city deal was still active until the EA dropped. Nobody dropped the ball on that one. In fact, it was the city, the OPS, and the barriers that made that one difficult to actually continue with that plan. It was never vitiated, which means voided by anybody other than officials. Bothers me when people that are human do that. Sorry. Impending. So the Emergencies Act actually says existing or impending emergency. Existing, we all know what that means. It's existing. Impending, well, she used it as if it meant any possible damage, any possible emergency. The way she kind of used it was to imply that it means anything in the future. It actually has a word. It's a word and it has a meaning. It means it has to be about to happen, forthcoming. So that means there has to be a reasonable expectation that's happening. In other words, the ships are sailing across the ocean headed towards you with the guns pointed at you. You may notice because it's going to happen. It's impending. It's coming. But that's what impending means, people. It doesn't mean possible. It doesn't mean hypothetical. It doesn't mean maybe. It's a specific word, and it was used for a specific reason because it wasn't meant to mean any other problem. It means an existing national security issue or an impending. It's coming. Reasonably understand it's coming. And impending wouldn't fit in this situation at all. Diagolon, Farfada, the police themselves, nobody has said there was an impending anything yet. Just a lot of possible. So it's written in the act. The word's there for a reason. She misused it. He allowed her to. That's right, Chumpley. Bob and weave. Yeah, he didn't do so well with this witness, did he? At all. And this witness was strong. Has his facts straight. Yeah. John, I know you like him, and I know you liked his testimony today and all that kind of stuff. I still have some issues with his position, where his state of mind is, where he's coming from. Everything that came out of him from that point on is professional. He's a very good witness, but he's already starting from the position of that they were occupiers, and he is also running around with some conspiracy theories in his head about a coordinated effort to thin out the police. Or is just a massive amount of people who are frustrated. Dude, there's really that option too. Hey, John, last from you. Diversion on Chumpmeister's part. It's about the liberal regime, the city of Ottawa, and an unlawful EA. Queen's Park is unrelated. Chumpus is grasping at straws in an attempt to rattle. He's grasping. And if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe and press that notification button to receive more information like this. You can also follow me at yellowhead.vote to stay informed and get the inside scoop. Thank you.